Hello, everyone, and welcome to day 2 of Pivot to Grow. For those of you that were on yesterday, it is awesome to have you back. We had hundreds of MSPs on yesterday, which was very, very cool to see. And you know, if you're on today, you're one of the 600 plus that have registered and are taking part in this event, which is just absolutely awesome. So on behalf of myself, Andra, Hedden, Sam of Marketopia, and you've got Matt on here also. He is the VP of Business Development over at ID Agent. For those of you just tuning in, we paired up to do something a little different for you and wanted to bring you in an event that was fully based on sales and marketing. So you're going to get another awesome day of that. We'll dig right into it, and I'll let Matt kind of kick it off. He and I are going to be hosting, so if you've got questions, definitely participate. Put them inside of the chat, and we've got Dana from ID Agent responding to your questions and definitely be engaging. Yesterday, the audience was awesome, asking questions and being really, really forthcoming with being not only entertained by what was happening and inspired, but then also to engaging and asking questions. So we're here for you, and we're really excited to kick off today. If you are sharing out content, and we absolutely urge you to do so. So if you're on your social medias, if you hear a cool quote from Sam, or if the panel has something awesome that they say, share it out there and give that to others in your community, and feel free to hashtag Pivot to Grow and just get it out there. So Matt, introduce us to who our first speaker is today.
Yeah, I mean, so first of all, thank you again. That was a great intro, and we were so excited we had over 100 additional people register just after hearing about day one. So thank you to people for getting the word out about this. But today is like a really good blend of one of the things we talked about really from the start of how to make this really kind of a successful event, which is bringing in a voice that you may have, well, you definitely probably have not heard in this space, and then also bringing in some industry veterans as well. But in many cases, if you're not in the UK, you may not have heard of them, and that's on the back end that I'm doing a panel with FIONA, CHALLIS, and Paul Green, and giving them an opportunity to share their insights, and even having that international perspective to help you come up with creative and pivot with new ideas. But our first guest, who I think Dana will be letting into the room here any second, is Samantha McKenna. And I've known Sam probably maybe for over 10 years. I think she's popping in here right now. So we originally met. Hey, Sam.
Hi, Sam.
Hey, guys. I'm going to stand by. There we go. I'm here.
You were giving us the duel. So Sam, we met when I was in the league selling to law firms, and you were working for On24 at the time, selling into law firms. And so we met as part of a marketing group, and have stayed in touch over the years. And then you went on to work for a company that I love, and I'm sure you loved working for, which was LinkedIn. And I think vice president of sales at LinkedIn. And then you now formed your own company, hashtag Sam's Sales. Is that right?
You got it. Yeah, you got it.
And I was before it was a company, I followed the hashtag. So, lots of, and I encourage anybody on LinkedIn to follow that hashtag, because she
absolutely
sprinkles lots of little nuggets, and they're filled with great reminders of how to be successful at sales. And Sam, I may have told you this before or not, but really, you're one of the best salespeople I've ever met in my life.
Take it. Thanks.
Yeah. He says it all the time. He's not just saying it right now, so believe him when he says that.
Thanks, Dana. That's so nice, Andrew.
Yeah. And just before we kind of kick things over to you, I know Dana's got a poll, and this might also help you construct some of the conversation today that you're sharing. But this one, Andrew, I'll let you kind of tee this one up.
Sure. So you see it come up on your screen right in front of you. So go ahead, everyone answer this. We love it. The more the merrier, obviously, on these. It lets you really see kind of where you stand as well. So how has your sales strategy and your tactics changed due to COVID-19? So yes, it's dramatically changed. It's somewhat changed, not really. And as everyone is answering that, Sam, where are you streaming in live from?
Well, you may have heard of my city as well. I'm in DC, so we're in the thick of some interesting action here. So for any of you coming in from DC, hope you guys are doing well. But yeah, coming in from there. What about you?
Awesome. So I'm in Florida. Matt's also in DC. So we've got, everyone's streaming in from different places, but no, we're absolutely excited to have you on today. And if nothing else, I'm hoping that we can give everyone, some great positive things to think about in their business, and some things to focus on as everyone continues to try to just grow. So here's a look really quickly at the poll, and I'll let you speak to this too, Sam. I know you can see it. Looks like the majority, so 58% of those that wrote in somewhat, their sales strategy has changed due to COVID, 12% not really, and then 30%, it's dramatically changed. So I think that's going to be, hopefully, we talked about this yesterday, hopefully these numbers will start to skew and change even towards the end of the week. I think a lot of the lessons learned this week, and I'm certain that some of the things that Sam is going to share right now will take some of you that says somewhat up into the dramatically change category, because you're going to learn other ways that you can start to shift what you're doing right now. So take it away, Sam.
Thanks, guys. I'm going to actually share my screen so I can pull up my slide deck. So in case you guys need to give me privileges, just heads up, it's coming.
While you do that, we'll drop off. We'll still be in the background. So, but if when you're done, we'll come back. We'll do some Q&A. By the way, several shout outs for DC people attending. But we've got MSPs from over 15 countries around the world that have signed up for this. So pretty exciting.
That's amazing. Cool. Well, thanks you guys for having me. So as mentioned before, I'm Sam McKenna and I run Sam Sales Consulting. My just background to give you some credibility, since a lot of you guys are coming across me for the first time. So I've been an individual contributor and an executive global sales leader at a few companies, one recognizable one like LinkedIn, so you know that one pretty well. I've crushed a bunch of records, built teams from the ground up, enterprise teams, built processes, global go-to-market strategies. Got a lot of really boring stuff to tell you about. If ever you want to share some information over a glass of wine, I'm your girl. But what I thought I would do today is share with you our 10 best Sam Sales hacks. And so basically what happens here is I've been posting the hashtag Sam Sales for about 4 or 5 years now. So my consultancy came around as a result of it being so popular, and through some great inbound demand, which I've been very fortunate to have. But what this is really when I post these sales tips and strategies on LinkedIn, what's engaged with the most, what seems to resonate the most. And what I think you're going to find is that some of these are really, really basic practices. They might be things that you're like, oh, well, of course. And then you think, well, wait, do I actually do that? And I think you'll get some really great tangible value out of this session today, things that you can apply to your own sales game. I will say, just based on the poll and kind of how we kicked off, I know a lot of people's sales game has changed given COVID. And so a lot of people had to change their value proposition entirely, right? We even think about restaurants or places that we used to visit and what they've done now to adjust. So we're in that same boat. If you have questions about that specifically, please feel free to throw it into the Q&A. Happy to address that as we get to the end of the session. And again, hope you get some great value out of this. I'm going to move quickly. So as you can tell, I speak very, very quickly. So if there's anything you miss, again, feel free to reach out afterwards or feel free to throw it in the Q&A. So first and foremost, we're in sales, right? Whether we're running a business, whether we're entrepreneurs, whether we're the head of sales, we're in sales. And I think one of the things that's really important to think about is how we succeed in sales is not necessarily by being better at sales, it's by being different at what we do, right? So you want to think about how you stand out. When there's a sea of emails that are coming to an individual that you're trying to target, how does your email stand out? What do you do to be different? When you're in the proposal phase and you're up against 3 different people for a deal, what do you do to stand out? Really, it's about being different. If you don't know Michael Porter's a fabulous economist and author, and at that I'm underselling him anyway, but fabulous person to read. And I just love this quote from him because it really resonates with what's made me so successful in my career, which is being different. And we're going to talk about a lot of those practices today. So hack number 1, and probably one of my favorite things ever, the urgent bird gets the worm. And yes, I realize it's the early bird gets the worm, but mine is the urgent bird gets the worm. And urgency is such a critical part about our success in sales, right? How we respond to clients, how we deliver, how we follow up, what we do to be the first one to congratulate someone on a new job or to capitalize on a compelling event that's happened. The urgency that we display to our customers is key. And I'll say that the urgency that you display is one of the easiest ways for you to set yourself apart. Think about from your own perspective, again, in your own shoes, in your own role, how often you have sought out proposals from a business perspective or sought out proposals even from a professional perspective. I'm planning a wedding, so I can't tell you how many proposals I'm chasing right now, and oh my God. But think about it from your perspective of, if you are chasing and chasing people, for you to not have to be somebody that's chased, for you to proactively go and deliver something and show urgency, how much you'll stand out and you'll be different just by doing that. So let's think about a couple things. Number one, respond to inbound inquiries within 24 hours or in the same day that they come in. And you might think, just like my tagline here says, that my team already does that. I already do that. But I think if you really inspect the process, you'll find that you're not doing that consistently, or that your team isn't doing that consistently. Just responding again, same day, just shows they're important to you. You have a process, you have a methodology, and it'll be different than what most people do, where sometimes they take 2, 3, 15 days to respond. I'll give you a great example here too. One of the former companies I worked for, I got to go to a dinner one night, and I sat across from an old client that we used to have. And she said, I used to use your technology. We had some hiccups, but I'd be willing to give it a shot again. I was like, oh my gosh, that's great news. I ran back to the office. I got into Salesforce. I said, who owns this account? And I handed the lead on a silver platter to that rep and to that vice president and said, I think if you guys tack this together, you can probably win this client over. Take a guess of how many days it took them to follow up with the client. 11 days. 11 days. I lost my mind. That urgency, again, what you're displaying either with the speed or the slowness of your response really communicates something to your prospects. So be aware of this. Deliver something when you say you will. So think about this too. If I was going to say, hey, Matt Solomon, thank you so much for meeting with me about Sam Sales. I'm going to give you a proposal by the end of the day, Tuesday. Let's say things go awry, and at the end of the day, Tuesday, I can't give that proposal. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to say to Matt, hey, I need one more day to work on your proposal. Something popped up. My meetings ran late, but I just wanted to get back to you since I promised you something today. Just letting you know I have a new ETA of tomorrow. Even just communicating that small difference and saying, I know that what I owed you today was important to you, and I'm not going to be able to get it, and communicating a new timeline, again, will be different, because what most people do is they miss the timeline, and then a day or two go by, and then you're like, oh, here's that proposal, without even addressing the fact that you're late. Who does that? It's like walking into a meeting 30 minutes late and being like, hey, I'm here. You would never do that. Thank you and thank you. So what do I mean by this? Thank you and thank you to me. One, after I've had any kind of demo, certainly in-person meeting, but anything that's a high value meeting for me, the same day I'm sending a thank you email out. And again, this might seem really simple, but think about how many times you've done that recently. Do you have a meeting with a prospect and then before the end of the day, just say, thank you. Thank you for your time. Thank you for meeting with us. Thank you for letting us be part of your bidding process. If you don't, I would highly suggest that you do it, because again, it just sets a different tone. Also, you're in the courting process with your clients, right? So sending that urgent message right afterwards, or a couple of hours later that same day, and just saying thanks makes a huge difference. And then the second thank you, which I'm sure I'm gonna get some questions about at the end, but I send a handwritten thank you note to everybody that attended the meeting. Now, you might think, Sam, I can't possibly send handwritten thank you notes to everybody that attends every single meeting I have, and also everyone's at home. So how in the heck am I supposed to get their addresses? So here's two things that I would tell you. One, if you ever have in-person meetings, or meetings now that should be in person, but they're on Zoom, think about this. Like the thing that's important here is that you are meeting with people that are decision makers, key influencers, heavy influencers in your deals. And if those people can be just swayed a little bit towards liking you more and wanting to do business with you, why wouldn't you do that? Sorry. Why wouldn't you do that, right? So you have an opportunity to handwrite a thank you note, even for those really important meetings, or even the ones where perhaps it's just a discovery call, perhaps it's a demo, but you've got your decision maker on the line. Think about, are the people that attended, and is the value of the meeting worth a little extra effort? And if it is at that point, send the handwritten thank you note. I'm a huge fan. I even have my #SamSales ones that are created. I have lined envelopes, the whole 9 yards. I'm a real nerd when it comes to stationery. You're welcome. So I think what's really key here is make sure you do that. Now, if you don't have home addresses, what do? I send a note and say, thanks so much for the time, et cetera, et cetera. And then I also send a separate email to the person that I've got the best relationship with and say, can you pass me everyone's mailing address, or may I have your mailing address? Really easy way to get it. Also, you can just send it to the corporate office and they'll forward the mail along if applicable. Either way, that person's going to get a handwritten thank you note from you, and it makes a difference. Okay, Hack number 2, your subject line is the most important part of your email. So here's something that I think is key and is missed, right? Especially from our perspective, when we're really thinking about how to shift our mind into sales and do outbound prospecting. Even when we respond to inbound leads, for the emails that we send, we often have it wrong. So the messaging is so important. Your subject line is the first thing that anybody sees when you send any kind of cold email. Even if you send a warm email and you're responding to an inbound lead, it's the first thing that they see is your subject line. So I think what's important here is when you've got your subject line, think about what goes into it. And it should be an element of show me, you know me. Show me, you know me. This is a acronym that I would have tattooed on myself if I could. I'm too scared. But show me, you know me is key. Do your homework on your buyers. Do your homework on the people that you're trying to get a meeting with. Show that you've given time to figure out who they are, what their challenges might be, and put that in the subject line. So here's a few things that aren't quite the right subject lines, and then here's one that really works at the bottom. So wrong subject line. These are examples of ones that I've received in the last few months. So leading IT support technology. I'm a CEO of a small company, and I probably don't need leading IT support technology, and I don't really know what that means, and it's not applicable to me. Delete. Samantha McKenna. Riveting. You put my name in the subject line. Fabulous. Delete. Analyzing, and it literally says insert company name, tech stack, and more. Super fail, right? I can tell that it's a canned message. You didn't even take the time to actually do the thing correctly in your formatting for your outreach campaign. Instant delete. So some of the things that I think about, right? Like this is the first thing that people see, and this is the first way to communicate to them. I didn't do anything, and you are one of 1,000 people that I emailed, which tells me I'm not even going to read your email. Bye. And that's exactly what your buyers are thinking. So let's look at the right way. And you might read this email and think, what does this even mean, right? Florida State University plus LinkedIn plus Katie Monroe. The subject line, for me, that makes sense. And it doesn't make sense to you, but here's the key. It doesn't need to make sense to anybody but the person receiving it, right? That's the show me, you know me. So thinking back to that subject line, Florida State University, that's where I went to school. Yay, for anybody in Florida. LinkedIn, I worked there. Katie Monroe, good friend of mine. So when I see those three things together, I think there's an element here of something that the person knows about me. It shows that they've done their homework. It shows that they've looked at my profile. It shows that I'm not just one of 1,000 people that they're messaging, right? Catch the person's eye. And the great part is that first email probably isn't going to get a response. The second email might get a response. The third, the fourth, maybe the 19th one does. But what's critical is that you keep the same subject line. I see a lot of people who change the subject line every single time, right? So if I was trying to, reach out to Dana as the CMO, and I was going to send her a bunch of emails, by keeping the same subject line, I'm reinforcing like, hey, I've been working really hard to try and get your attention. And it's with show me, you know me, right? So she's going to keep saying my name, Samantha McKenna, plus the show me, you know me subject line. And eventually, hopefully one day I'm going to break her and she's going to respond. So all of these things really pay off. So think about that first in your outreach campaign. What are you writing in the subject line? Hack number 3, your first sentence is the second most important part, right? In your first sentence, think about what you write and think about what you get in the mail every single day. Here's what I get. Hi, Sam. Hope this finds you and your family doing well in this unprecedented time. I want to die. If I'm going to hear that one more time, I'm going to jump off a cliff, right? So are you guys, because you're so sick of hearing it, right? Plus, it's not a great use of a first sentence. It does nothing to prove value, introduce you, anything. And furthermore, honestly, this has been a big question. Like, do I still address COVID? Do I still address what's going on out in our streets? Do we talk about it? I think from the COVID perspective, especially, like, we have adjusted to kind of where we are from that perspective, and you can move forward. But even if you do want to say something, save the nicety for the end, right? When you put it at the top and then you get to the point, it loses the authenticity of the notion, and the email is just set off on the wrong way. So if you just start by getting to the point and then saying, otherwise, in other news, I hope everything's well with you, or something like that, I think that's fine. I don't think necessary, by the way, we can again talk about that during the Q&A, but first sentence, let's make sure that it's not a burner with hope this finds you well, hope this finds you doing well, anything like that. So what do we write instead? Here's my first go-to. Every single time I send an email, I've got this show me, you know me on the subject line. And the second thing that I do is my first sentence says exactly this. Hi, Bill, or whoever. We have yet to be properly introduced, but I'm Samantha McKenna. I'm Sam McKenna. And And the reason that I leave the ellipses there and let it drag off is because that's about all they're going to see, right? With the subject line plus my first sentence, on average, you see about 12 words in the pop-up in your Outlook and the preview in your Gmail, whatever, before you decide, do I even want to open this or am I going to delete it? So you want to make sure those 12 words are really strong. Again, show me you know me, plus what this first sentence looks like. The combination of the subject line plus the first sentence is the difference, really, between somebody opening it and reading it or swiping left and deleting it. Let's give a couple examples here. So here's something that's interesting. Here's a typical email that I will get, and kind of talking about the niceties factor. I want you to have a look at this one, and I'll talk to you about the bonus hack that's in the subject line there. But again, Florida State, different subject line, Judy Tian, which is a good friend of mine, Sam Sales Consulting. So if you read the subject line, again, I'll talk about the nationals thing in just a second, but if you read that subject line again, and then you say, hi, Bill, we have yet to be properly introduced, and you go in versus, read this one, same exact subject line, hi, Bill, I hope this finds you're doing well. We have yet to be properly introduced, but whatever. The authenticity of what I'm doing speaks different volumes in this email versus this one that is cleaner, right? I don't even add the nicety closing at the end of this. But again, get to the point, use that first sentence to be something that's of value versus a burn away point. Bonus hack. So if you've ever thought about, let's say you're sending out email campaigns to your prospects and you're trying to get on their calendar. And let's say at one moment when we go back to our normal way of life, we start to host events again, or baseball games or football games, hockey games, whatever. We host people to our events. What to think about here is that when you give that directive, either you do it yourself or you have your sales team that goes to try and get people to register for this. What many people do as a mistake is they will just reply all to the same email that they've been sending all along. And then what will they do? They'll bury the lead. They'll put the content, right, from we're inviting you to a game or a suite at Nats Park if you're in DC or whatever it may be. They'll put it in the subject, the body of the email. And what happens, especially if somebody hasn't responded for some time, they're not going to read it. They're just going to think it's the same old thing where you're just reaching out yet again to get another meeting to sell them something. So here's my bonus hack. I actually put the call to action right in the subject line before the RE, right? And when somebody reads that, they'll think, Washington Nationals game on Thursday. Woo, I do like the Nats. I might want to go to that. And then they'll see the rest of the subject line and say, oh, that's right. That's the same person again. Okay, well, they are inviting me to a game. So maybe I will open this one and read it. This works like a beautiful charm. I use this all the time, you know, dinner on Thursday night, cocktails and whatever. I'm going to be in Atlanta this week, whatever the call to action is that I want to make sure they see, I throw in the subject line, really works beautifully. So little bonus hack for you there. Hack number 4, be a gracious loser. I had to follow my own advice today. I, much like many of you, have lost deals before. I lost a deal today. I heard we went with somebody else and I cried for a minute and then I responded positively. And so here's what I mean by be a gracious loser. So don't be a poor sport. We know this, right? This is our old adage from growing up and being good sport as kids. But think about this as it relates to business. I can't tell you how many examples I have of reps who have lost deals and they don't respond to the person after the person delivers them news that they've lost the deal. They don't get a job and the rep doesn't respond to that, you know, sorry, we're not hiring you. They don't get an introduction. They don't get an opportunity. They don't get something that they were fighting for and they don't respond, period. Or they do respond and they're kind of bitter and not great about it. Here's what you can do. Be a positive sport, right? Write back and say, gosh, I'm so disappointed to hear that we didn't win, but man, do we appreciate the opportunity to have even been in the bidding process. Thanks for considering us. We truly wish you the best. If we can ever be of help or if ever you know anybody that could use us, please keep us in mind. By doing that, number one, you're going to do a great display of character, right? But let's think about how often people also change jobs. So here's a great example to give you. Years ago, I worked for a company that Matt mentioned called On24, and we had a person who moved from her old company to Adobe, and Adobe has a technology that competes with On24. When she moved to Adobe, she said, I'm not using our technology, I'm going to use On24. And we're like, great. It was a huge contract. It was our quarter-making contract. We were so excited. And when we got to basically signature right before Memorial Day, a VP of IT came in and darn IT people came in and said, no way are we using a competitor. There's no way. Deal's gone. You have to use in-house technology. So my rep at the time was super ticked about it, as you can imagine. And I was like, you need to write her a handwritten thank you note and say, thank you so much for even considering us. Why? Because it wasn't her call that she didn't end up going with us, right? She did everything she could to get us in the gate. And what happened? 6 months later, she changed jobs and we had to deal with her at her new company within a couple of weeks. This stuff really pays off. Not only are you just a better human by being kind and being appreciative of having somebody run the deal with you and even include you, but odds are they will leave, they will remember your graciousness and your character, and they'll hire you there, or they'll refer you by saying, I can't believe you reacted that way. No one ever does. Thanks for being a good person. So there's my gracious loser for you. Nobody wants to be a loser, but let's be a gracious one. Best way to kick off a discovery call. So hack number 5. Again, a mistake that I see a ton of reps make, and I think what can really impact the success of your initial calls. So here's what happens a lot. What happens a lot on discovery calls is that the rep will get on the discovery call, the leader will get on the discovery call, and they'll say, thanks for making time for us. They won't form any rapport of any kind, which, oh my gosh. But then they'll say, tell me what interested you in taking this call today. And the buyer's like, I don't know. I responded to something you guys sent me from one of your sales development reps or somebody, and I just thought I would check you out. Oh my God, where do you go with that, right? So 1, it's giving them a terrible first experience, right? 2, then you probably will feel uncomfortable and nervous, and then you will go on and just spout out a bunch of stuff about your company or your product or what you can do. Instead, think about it this way. So the best way to start a discovery call is, of course, form your rapport, right? 90 to 120 seconds. It's not a perfect science, nor does it need to be. Sometimes my rapport building goes like 17 minutes into the call, and I'm like, oh my God, we haven't talked about what we were supposed to talk about at all. Let's transition. But use some time to form rapport with the individual, right? They're looking for that, especially now that we're virtual on exclusively, basically. We want to make sure that we have extra time to build that rapport. So start that. Remember that it is your call to run. So we don't want awkward pauses to come in where you form rapport and then you're kind of sitting there and then the client's like, oh my God, what's happening? And then they're like, so the reason I wanted to get on this call today, and then they start to run it. It is your call to run. So just keep that in mind. As soon as you see an opportunity to kind of end the rapport and transition, you can start your call off by launching into your discovery call, which is the right way. And that's at the bottom. The way that I always start it is to say, Matt, so listen, I could tell you a million things about Sam Sales Consulting, but for starters, I'd love to hear from your perspective. Tell us about your team, your challenges. Woo. Sorry guys, I'm back. Tell us about your team, tell us about the challenges you're having. What's the overall landscape on your side, if that's okay? So I want you to think about a couple of things with the way to start this, right? 1, so I could tell you a million things about Sam Sales Consulting, about your company. You're basically introducing the idea that at some point on this call, you will tell them something about yourself. Then you're transitioning to the second of 3 points, which is, but first I would like to hear from you. And by giving them some examples, I'd love to hear about your team, your challenges, the overall landscape over there. What you're doing with that is you're getting their wheels thinking about, what can I tell her about what's going on here? Truth be told, I don't actually care about that. I don't care about your team. I don't care about the challenges. I don't care about the landscape. I care about whatever is in your head. I want to crack your head open and I want to get anything out that's inside that made you show up for this call. But I'm just using this as an icebreaker, right? And then the final part that I'm saying is, if that's okay. 9 times out of 10, that's going to be okay. And your prospect is going to go on and on and on and tell you lots of stuff about what's going on their side. But you're going to get the one time where someone says, you know what, actually, I don't want to tell you about us. I got a recommendation. It seems like you can solve all of our challenges. I have a few direct questions that we can move forward from there. But just asking that okay is, again, very self-aware and a great critical way to make sure to get their permission. What's going to happen next? What's going to happen next is that they are going to give you a stream of consciousness of information, why they showed up to the call, challenges they're having, why they're interested in your technology, how they heard about you, who they know that you know. They're going to give you all of the things, right? So it's really important that you, 1, let that stream of consciousness go, don't interrupt, but 2, take notes. I'm super old school, as I like my handwritten notes. I also like my notebooks. And I keep an outline of everything that they say during the call, right? So I want to know point number 1, point number 2, point number 3. And once they're done, I'm going to say, oh my gosh, I have a million questions now. Can I go back to point number 1? And I'm going to start to dig into what they said. But just by starting the discovery call that way, right? By saying, you tell me about you, but in a very polished way, you're going to win hearts and minds, because then you're going to get all the information you need to keep the ball moving forward. And you're also going to get the information you need to qualify or disqualify the call. Now, one of the things I will tell you too is that as someone in sales or representing a product, one of the things that's really important is that you use that time for that individual really wisely. And what I mean by that is that you make sure that in those 30 minutes, you solve their challenge either directly through you or through the technology that you sell. So if they get on the call and if you find that you cannot actually solve their problem, it's important to say, let me make sure I understand your challenges, because I think I can probably recommend someone to you that can solve your problems.
Hack number 6. Hack number 6, switching off my AirPods. Technology is failing me today. So question behind the question. For any Seinfeld fans out there, why don't you just tell me the name of the movie you'd like to see? A lot of reps, when I give this advice, think, why don't prospects just tell me what it is that they want me to answer? Why don't they just be direct about what the actual issues are? And what we find, a lot is that people are just asking very surface questions because they want some information and they're not going to tell you everything, right? So question behind the question. Let's talk about this. One of my very first jobs, again, for anyone from Disney or from Florida, is I grew up in Orlando, and my very first job was at Disney's Typhoon Lagoon. I was 16. I had my red swimsuit. I was super excited, but I learned some tremendous lessons when working for Disney. And one of the things that Disney talks about is what is their most popular question, and that is, what time is the 3 o'clock parade? Well, it's at 3 o'clock. You just answered your own question. So as a rep, if you hear that question and you say, it's at 3 o'clock, and you move on, you've really failed that person. So what they teach us at Disney is, what is the question behind the question? So when someone's saying, what time is the 3 o'clock parade? That's not really what they're asking. So it's our job to figure out what they're really asking. So you evaluate the situation, right? Do they have kids? Is there someone in a wheelchair? Are they trying to get out of the park? Do they want to get to a particular ride? Are they short? Are they tall? What are they trying to accomplish by asking this question? And so you can say, it's at 3 o'clock, but tell me more. Where do you want to go afterwards? Are you trying to get out of the park? What do you need? And you're digging in, so they can say, well, actually, we're trying to get to Space Mountain. And you're like, okay, great. So here's where you want to stand, right? We're digging in for information, and working with your clients is no different. So think about it this way, right? When you get a question, you want to think about, why are you asking, right? So if somebody says, does Sam Sales operate in the US only? And I say, no. And I finish there. Again, I've lost. So I say, no, actually, we're global. Do you have global teams? Do you need global support? Tell me about you. And then they're like, well, actually, and then they data dump. And again, that's all I'm looking for. I want all of the details. So the other thing, again, you're getting a treasure trove of details when you ask that. Here's a good way to think about this, right? So from a question perspective, one of the ones that my reps get tons of from all the different companies that I coach is, do you guys have an app? Do you have an app? Okay, great. Yes, we do. If you answer yes, we do, and the person says, great, then have you actually solved their problem? No, you haven't solved their problem. So you want to say, we do, and I can tell you more about that. But is that a priority? Tell me a little bit about that, right? And even just by getting that, we're going to get somebody who responds and says, our reps are on the road a lot. We're on the road a lot. We need something that integrates with Salesforce if it's an app. We need an API that does XYZ. Again, we're getting tons of information out of them. So we want to make sure that we ask, why are you asking? Even if you think that you're, even if you think that the answer is obvious of why they're asking that question, still ask. Tell me more about that. Okay, let me see how we are on time, guys. Good, all right, about a little bit halfway through. Who are the theys? It's a mouthful to say, I know. Who are the theys? So here's some lines that you may have said yourself, or you may have heard from your team before, right? They are going to present to the committee, and then they are going to decide. They've picked us as the final 3, so we'll know in 2 weeks. The VP of sales said they wouldn't be deciding until they meet with the team, and then we'll know next steps. Good grief. The VP of demand gen is looking at a few options, and then they'll decide. Who are the theys? Who are they? And you want to think about this. When you are selling a deal, whether it's an SMB deal or it's an enterprise deal, especially, right? Given the size of how large companies are, enterprise deals specifically, on average, have 6.9 decision makers. I don't know what the 0.9 is, but 6.9 decision makers that are involved. So one thing you want to think about for yourself is who else is on the decision-making committee? Are there cross-functional partners? Are there leaders from other teams? Are there people even at other companies or on the board that are involved in making this decision? Who are the theys? The other thing that you want to think about is that given that there are so many people involved, the more people that are involved, the more risk it introduces. Not only from varying ideas and opinions and everything, but what if one of those people leave? What if the chief marketing officer, what if the Dana is part of the decision-making process and then she leaves? Does that mean that I have to wait for a new CMO to come in to make my decision? These are all things you want to know when you hear the word they. If you don't know who the theys are, it's critical. The other thing to think about is the theys on the other side. Who are your competitors? Who are you going up against? Who are the theys that they are also considering? I'll give you a good example. So I think you can relate everything in sales back to dating. Way too little time to talk about that. But here's a good example. So one of my reps once said exactly this. The second bullet, they've picked us as the final 3 and we'll know in 2 weeks. And so I'm like, okay, great, got it. Who are the other 2? And he's like, I don't know. And I was like, okay. And this is my rep, one of my old reps, Jason, who, if he ever listens to this, he'll be like, oh my God, I can't believe you're still talking about this. But Jason was single at the time. And I'm like, Jason, if you went out on a few dates with a girl and then she was like, I really like you, and I'm trying to decide whether or not it's you or these 2 other dudes that I want to make my boyfriend, what would you say? Would you say, okay, keep me posted? Or you'd be like, who are the guys? Who are the guys? Where are they from? What do they do for work? Are they nice to you? You would ask all of those questions, right? So if we're going to do that from a relationship perspective, why wouldn't we do that in a business perspective? That's great that we made the final 3. Can you talk to me about the other competitors? Who else you're looking at? Maybe I could give you some just slightly biased consultative advice on where we, have some advantages and where they maybe have opportunities that we fill those gaps. Again, we are not looking to throw anybody under the bus, but we're looking to understand what our competitive landscape is, right? If you are selling a Tesla and somebody tells you, hey, your Model S Tesla that is $130,000, you are one of the 3 options that I'm considering for a car, and you say, cool, versus tell me who else, and you say, 2 $10,000 used car versions, you really need to know that information so you can be like, okay, here's why you should spend 12 times that and buy 13 times that and buy my car, right? We need that information. So make sure you understand who the theys are. Okay, let's talk about LinkedIn. Feel free to roll your eyes and be like, what else can I learn about my LinkedIn profile? Holy moly. And yes, of course, I'm so biased because I've worked there and I've been on LinkedIn for a million years. It is a fabulous platform if you are not already using it. And then if you're not using Sales Navigator from LinkedIn, then again, a whole nother discussion. But your LinkedIn profile, your headline, and your about section are really critical. If I can convince you to only update 3 things on your LinkedIn today, it's going to be these. So let's talk about your headline. One, just your profile in general. If you are engaging with your clients and you are talking to them about, everything that you can do for them, and they finally say, you're so great. Now, let me go and look at your LinkedIn. One, all the emails that they send back and forth with you, this is what they're going to think of you, that you're polished, you're put together, you're savvy, right? Good dresser. That really hurt. But when they go to your LinkedIn profile, and if it's incomplete, if it shows a job that you used to have, if it shows a picture from when you were in high school, if you got your mom and a beer in the picture, which I've really seen it all. If you have any of that, this is what they're going to think you are, right? I'm really like on a sitcom thing here. For any SNL fans, this is drunk lipstick Terry, but this is how they're going to think of you instead of the person on the left, right? And we want them to think of you, the person on the left, not Sherry O'Terry's lawyer character. So here's a couple things to think about here. For your profile section and just the header and the headline, this is mine. So this is a screenshot of my own LinkedIn profile. That headline there is supposed to essentially say what challenge you solve. Who are you? What can people come to you for, right? Mine is slightly different in the sense of founder Sam Sales, because Sam Sales has a lot of notoriety, right? If I'm not Bill Gates, but let's say I'm Bill Gates, I can just be like CEO, I guess he's not anymore, but if I was CEO of Microsoft, right, I can say that because I've got some brand recognition. People already know a little bit about me, but I can add some things here too. Award-winning leader, I'm a leader, and it's probably sales because I run Sam Sales. I'm a speaker. If you need me to speak, here I am. I'm an author, LinkedIn expert. I'm overly enthusiastic. If you guys don't believe that by now, then we're really in trouble. But you get a good sense of the challenge that I solve, what I can bring to the table, what I can do for you, and a little bit about my personality right in this section, right? And this is the first place that we're hooking them in, right? What we want to look at this with this headline is to say, I can solve the challenge that you need. I want a buyer to look at this and say, okay, this is a challenge that I have. This is exactly what I can solve or I need solved. Great. Now, let me read more about the person. Quick bonus hack that I'll give you, again, checking our time, we're good. My banner. So check your banner. If you have the standard blue constellation banner that comes standard with LinkedIn, it just says you haven't made the extra effort or you didn't even know that you could change it. So then it might say that you're not so modern. So one of the things that I would do is just put a banner back there. It can be of the city that you live in. I know a lot of people have DC or New York or San Francisco, just beautiful skylines. It can be a banner with your custom logo. I just decided to put some of the awards that I've won, because if you look at this and only this, I've got some credibility here, right? Like some big names have thought that I should get some awards. So you probably will hopefully want to read more of just looking at this. And that's exactly what we want your buyers to think. Second thing that we want to look at is the about section. So biggest mistake you can make with the about section, not having one at all. Tons and tons of executives and salespeople have no about section. And so what am I supposed to do with that? Again, back to the dating idea, it's like a dating profile with no text. Like, great, I just have pictures, riveting. So make good use of this. You can break down your profile in 3 sections, right? 1, especially being in a sales capacity or being somebody who is owning revenue, I want to start this with a story. Storytelling is huge in sales. So I want to start with a story and I want to pull somebody in, right? I got my first exposure to competitive sales in 6th grade. And you're like, wait, what? And hopefully you read this and you're like, I want to know more. That's the idea. Then I tell you about what I spent my career doing, right? Breaking some records. Here's what I do. Here's what you can count on me for. And then that's my expertise. So I start with the story, section 1. I give my expertise, section 2. Here's everything that I do professionally. And if you were to engage me, these are some of the things that I can probably tell you about. And then I end it with who I am otherwise. You want to add that personal appeal. And it doesn't have to be expansive. It doesn't have to be overly personal. I can say, you know, I love to travel. I'm a scuba diver. I like to read. You know, I love dogs, down with cats, just me. Okay. It can say whatever you want it to say, and it can still be really professional and really polished, but you want to have that in there, especially from a sales perspective. You want to give people footholds to think, you can solve my challenge because I read it in your headline. Now I'm reading your about section. I can see your expertise matches with what I need, but also you seem like somebody that maybe I'd want to get a beer with, right? Give people little footholds to think you're likable, and then things that they can even use to form rapport with you on. This is a very underutilized section. It's really a wonderful space to take advantage of. And if we didn't get this question already, I'll just go ahead and preemptively answer it. You want this to be written in the first person. This is not your opportunity to say, Sam McKenna is an award-winning leader and be super stiff. This is your profile. It's not your bio on your site. Your bio on your site can be owned by anybody. So that can be super polished in the third person, descriptive of you in somebody else's voice. But in this, you want it to be in the first person. This is your page and your humanity that's being shown here. So make sure to write it that way. Final third thing that I would mention, recommendations. So I wrote an article recently that's on LinkedIn. So if any of this escapes you and you want to just grab the script there, you can. But recommendations, what the title that I put for this article was LinkedIn recommendations. Do I have to? And yes, you do. I promise you, do it. So here's what we're thinking with the profile again. They get to the headline and it says, here's the challenge I solve. They get to the about section and they're like, okay, I like you. This seems great. Now, the third question is, what can we get them to buy from you? Do people recommend you, right? That's the question that we're trying, that's the final question we're trying to answer. And so here's just a sneak peek at some of my recommendations. And it's to say, 1, I didn't make the 50 overnight, right? You can see this, like March 9th, I think I have actually one new one since then, March 9th, December 8th, and so forth. But what you want to do is you want to build a database of consistent recommendations that say consistently who you are, right? If you read through all the recommendations, it's the same thing, right? It talks about the same thing that I do. And why does that matter? Because it shows that I'm credible and I'm an expert and that you can count on me to bring sales expertise, to bring marketing expertise, to follow through, to be on time, all of that crap. The thing that you want to think about with that, though, is that these are a way for the client to voice the things that you say to prospective buyers, that they just have to believe you for at the beginning, right? If you say, I'm an incredible negotiator, I respond, I don't miss a single detail, I am a connector, I have a broad network. If you say all those things, those are great. And somebody's going to just have to take your word for it until they experience it. But they can also read it in your recommendations. So my recommendation to you, would be to make a list of 12 people. If you have no recommendations whatsoever, or even if you have some, but they're from 2012, make a list of 12 people that you know that would recommend you, and take that list and reach out to 3 of them before the end of the week, maybe next week if you want to wait. But reach out to them and say, we've worked together for so long, or we've worked together on this project that was a success, and I was wondering if you might be up for writing me a LinkedIn recommendation. Totally understand if it's against corporate policy to write one, but I thought I would ask. It'd be so beneficial for, and again, I've got the script written in my article, but you can articulate it in a way that's really polished and that also gives that person a foothold to say no to. So on the off chance that you ask somebody that's like, oh, I really don't want to write you a recommendation, you in your script say, I understand if it's against corporate policy, and they can be like, great, bingo. It's against corporate policy. I can't write you one. You're giving them an easy out and being self-aware. So ask those 3 people. The next 3 people on your list of 12, put them as a reminder on your calendar 6 weeks from now. And then the next 3, another 6 weeks from now, and keep going on that way. And what's great about this is that you will steadily build a database of all of these people who recommend you, right? Again, I highly encourage you to look at that article. It gives you, again, the script, how to do, what should be written in the recommendation, what you do when someone's like, sure, I'm happy to write you one, but what do you want me to write? And you're like, I don't know. It's all in there, so feel free to grab any of that. But truly, this is huge. You also don't want to quid pro quo in the recommendation. So if somebody's like, sure, I'll write you one. Can you write me one? You can say, sure. I want to make sure that it doesn't look quite so quid pro quo. So let's make sure that when I write you this recommendation, that you you follow up with me, let's say in 2 or 3 weeks or in 3 months, and then I'll write it for you then. Okay, final tip. Nurture, nurture, nurture. I think you guys can hear me okay. Hopefully you can hear me now. Nurture, nurture, nurture. This is my final tip to you. And I think, again, something we really miss from a sales perspective. So when you get anyone, and I just noticed a question, link to the scripts. It's right on my LinkedIn profile. So feel free to go on my LinkedIn profile. If you go to all activity and see the activity that I've posted on the articles, there's a bunch of articles there. But one of them is for the LinkedIn recommendation. So feel free to grab that.
So I'll provide that for them.
Okay, thanks. All right, so nurture, nurture. Here's the important part here. You are going to get tons and tons of opportunities over the course of your career, if you're not in a bunch of them right now, but tons of opportunities where people say, I'd really love to talk to you. I'd love to do this. This is a priority for us, but it's not a priority for us right now. Can you touch base with me in 3 months? Can you talk to us again in 6 months when our contract expires with the incumbent that we have? And we say, sure. And then what do? We set a calendar reminder for 3 or 6 months from now, and we go and we chase other opportunities. And then in 3 or 6 months, we come back and we're like, hey, do you want to talk now? And they're like, oh, who are you again? The key is that when we have a really good opportunity with a decision maker or a key influencer at a company that we would really like to acquire as a client, you have to nurture that lead. And if you don't, somebody else is going to, and they're going to take that opportunity away from you. So here's a couple things that you could do to keep in touch meaningfully, right? It's not an email. It's like, anything changed? Anything changed? Anything changed over the course of those 3 months? It is driving value for that individual, making no asks whatsoever, and only giving them something, right? So that you can stay top of mind for them. And then at some point, when those 3 months come around, they'll say, I remember you, and you've driven a lot of value, and I'm ready to talk to you. Or they'll respond to one of the emails that you sent and say, you know what, this was a great email, and also I'm ready to talk to you 2 months in versus 3 months in. So you've just accelerated your sales cycle. Here's how to nurture. So let's say, for instance, CMO meets CMO, and this can be any title, right? Think about how difficult it is to make friends outside of college, right? We leave college, we move to a new city, and then we're like, oh my gosh, how do I find friends, right? And that might be people that you work with in your office. It might be people that you engage with through your church or volunteer activities or whatever. But it's hard to make new friends. So think about this too, just professional colleagues. If you are targeting a CMO, a head of IT, a head of a CEO, whatever it may be, if you know somebody that is in their same senior role, right, that they could meet in their same city, connect those 2 people, right? So let's say I was trying to get Dana's attention here as a CMO, and I know where she lives, and I could think, okay, how can I connect her with another CMO in her same city, or even in her same industry? Maybe they're not the same city, but say you 2 would really be great, powerful forces together. Being a connector is a great way to nurture. And man, have you done somebody a favor by giving them a new person to network with. Comment on their LinkedIn posts or those that they comment on. So if they post a lot, yours truly, you can go and drive value by actually commenting. It's not enough to just but throw a comment. This is also your opportunity to communicate your subject matter expertise to them, right? So you can go and comment and be like, great article. I love this topic of this. Here's my personal philosophy on it, whatever. You can also do that on posts that they comment on. So you can just pop over to their LinkedIn profile, go to all activity, and then see what they have commented on, not just what they post. So if they never post, doesn't matter. They'll probably comment on other people's things, and then they'll get a notification. Sam McKenna has commented on a comment that you've commented on, or a post you've commented on. What we want to do with this nurture campaign is we constantly want to remind somebody, I exist, I exist, I exist. Don't forget that I exist, right? But we, again, want to do it pulling all of these mediums that we can by staying top of mind for them in a variety of ways. Value-driven email. So I know a lot of people who do this and send tons of emails to their prospects, and they're like, here's an article, we have a webinar, you know, whatever it may be. The miss that we have when we do that is that, one, if you just send the link to something and say, hey, Bill, here's an article I thought you would like. Thanks, Sam. Great. Why should I read this article? You're missing two opportunities. One, to convince the person to read it. And then two, to communicate your subject matter expertise. So here's why I thought this was really interesting. Like, here's a data point from the article, and here's why I loved it. Here's something I got a value out of it. And what I'm going to do when I do that is I'm going to get Bill to think like, oh, this is interesting to me. And Sam thinks the way that I do. And okay, let me read this. And then maybe he'll respond and be like, I really enjoyed this, whatever. And we'll have a conversation. 3 things, and then we'll pass over to Q&A to keep us on time. So events, obviously invite them to events when we're running events, but we've got virtual events as well, just like this one today. So pull those levers. It doesn't even have to be your event. You can say, there's a great women's luncheon that's going on, and I'm going to attend. Do you want to attend with me? Like, let's powwow for a few minutes before, just catch up, and then we can attend this. I think it'd be really valuable. Think outside the box like that. Lunch, cocktails, same way. One of the things that we're also doing from a virtual perspective, just to be, I think, a little bit more thoughtful, is if we do have a meeting, by the way, with somebody and it's over lunchtime, we'll send an email to them and say, the day before, well, we would ordinarily love to be in person with you, and we would normally be bringing lunch or breakfast goodies or whatever. Since we can't do that, we actually made a donation in everybody's name for this company to Feeding America or to some, really great organization like that. So just wanted to know that, instead of providing lunch for us today, since we can't be in person, we've made this charitable contribution. Oh my gosh, makes people's hearts swell, and I think just such a nice thing to do. So just a good creative thing to do. And then the great highlight affair of 2009, it's been a while. But when I moved to DC, I had just gotten my start in sales 2 or 3 years before that. And so I was still a relatively new young rep. And one of the things that I was doing is trying to close a think tank here in DC. They were already a client, we were trying to expand, and the deal that I was trying to close was about 3 times my annual quota. It would have made me a monster amount of money and life-changing amount of money. And so I was really eager to get in front of the executive director that was our decision maker, and I couldn't, no matter what I tried. There was no opportunity for me to get in front of her. So here's what I did. I found a conference that she was speaking at. I went to the conference. I waited until it was over. I waited until the Q&A was over with her. Again, it's not about me. I'm not the priority here. So I waited for all of her Q&A to go and for her to be done. And then I walked up and I introduced myself and I said, I'm Sam McKenna and I work with your teams, et cetera. And she's like, oh my gosh. She's like, I've heard about you and I'm sorry. It's so difficult for me to find any time to meet with anybody. And she's like, but if you'll, follow up with me, just give me a few more weeks and I'll be happy to be in touch. Most reps would say, sounds great, take care, all the best, and move on. But here's what I did instead. I said, of course, no problem. Can I actually ask you a question? I just moved to DC and I have yet to find anybody who can do my highlights. I'm a blonde. Feel free to roll your eyes. I know it's vain, but whatever. And I said, your hair is great. Can you just recommend a place for me to go? And she said, oh my gosh, of course. And she was all effusive and told me the place. And I said, can I suggest something? Why don't I make an appointment for us the next time you need to go? It'll be my treat. And instead of you just having to go by yourself, maybe we kill 2 birds with 1 stone, we get to know each other, and we could talk a little bit about the business. And she accepted. If you live in any metropolitan city and get highlights, you know that they're very expensive. So it was quite the gamble. And I hadn't gotten approval to expense it yet, but I did get it. And in a matter of weeks, we ended up getting about a deal about 1/3 of the size of what we were hoping for, which was a great foot in the door for us to start proving value. So just think about things that you can do that are outside of the box to keep these nurture campaigns going. And with that, I will sort of stop talking. To Matt.
That was amazing. And even if you hadn't been able to get the company to pay for it, it'd probably been worth it for you to pay out of pocket for it. Yeah, God, that was such an awesome session. I'd watched version of it. I watched it at 2 speed because I had to really get through something, but much better at 1 speed. Lots of questions coming in. but there were so many things you brought up that it started resonating with myself. And I was thinking about, God, do I do these things? And you brought up the handwritten notes. And I know that a lot of people commented about that and had some questions. Even for myself, just it really resonated because one of my first jobs when I moved back from New York into DC, I worked for the company called Wind Value Government Consulting, and I wrote a handwritten note after my interview.
Yeah.
And then I walk into the sales director's office after I'd been hired, and I notice he's got my handwritten note like posted like on his wall. And I was like, why did you post that? And he's like, because I haven't received a handwritten note after an interview in a really long time. And he's like, yeah. And I mean, basically, but the cool thing about this is a handwritten note led me to ID Agent, because that's the same owner of Windvale is the owner of ID Agent. And so like none of the last 3 years would have happened without a handwritten note to that guy. So it's just,
I love that. Matt, that's actually the first time I've heard that story, and that's awesome. Sam, so I know Matt already said it. That was a lot of amazing nuggets that I know everyone is kind of unpacking, and much of it, one of the reasons why Matt was so excited to make sure that you were a big part of this event is that all of the community that is our MSP partners are constantly looking for really practical and things that they can just do and take action on the second that they get off of this. And I think you did a great job of that, from the handwritten notes. And you're not a nerd, by the way, with stationery. Love stationery. And the more personal, the better. And so I think that there were a ton of just really, really great pieces. One of the things that you talked about that I think is interesting is when you talk about gathering, you talked a lot about gathering a lot of this information and making sure that you're making anything, whether it's the handwritten note or whether it's the email that you send, whether it is the way that you get creative and connect with someone to highlight your hair together. And the underlying notion that you kept talking through was ways to be creative and pivot your strategy to fit the person. And so that's why it was so perfectly said. So thank you for that. But talk a little bit about, once you get that information, what do you suggest many of the MSPs do to capture, like, where do you put that information? How do you keep hold of all of that? I think that that's where a lot of people fall down. They gather it and it's only here and they don't put it anywhere. So what are some tips there?
So I did a webinar this morning all about coaching and being a great leader. And one of the things I talked about, again, back to my notebook, is I actually have this might seem super creepy to you guys, but I keep a notebook of all the things that I learned about my clients, my reps, the people that report to me. There's no way in hell I'm going to be able to remember all this. Neither will. Right? So I keep notes. So I've got little pages for everybody. If they're like, oh, my dog Coco, I'm like, dog Coco.
Yes. Yes.
Do Buffy, Coco and Buffy. And then, and honestly, to that exact example, I will just say, back to being a gracious loser, the deal that I lost today, when I wrote back to that person, said, I'm so sorry to not get to work with you. Hope for all the best for you. In the meantime, give my best to Coco and Buffy. You know what she's going to think is like, dang it. This person actually paid attention to my life, and the person I hired didn't, but she'll be great. And at some point it'll pay off. But these are the things that I do, like, keep this in your notebook. I also calendar things. So if there's something really important, one of my clients is getting married. So I'm also getting married, and everybody's like had to push their weddings later because of COVID. But she told me today that they're getting married in a private ceremony, and no one's gonna know. And she's like, I'm not telling anybody, but I'm gonna tell. Like, okay, great. And I was like, that's awesome. When is it? Blah, blah, blah. And I'm trying to make it seem like I'm not really asking for ulterior motives. And the ulterior motive is I'm gonna send her something for her wedding. She's going to remember that, and no one else is going to do it because they might not have known. So I calendar things. I don't want to forget that, right? That's coming up in July. There's no shot in hell I'm going to remember that in 4 weeks, but because I will. So
absolutely.
So we're going to kind of have to fire these off, Sam. So maybe we'll go short answers, because there's a lot of comments and questions. By the way, there were so many positive comments. One person said they're going to share this with their whole team. So by the way, everybody, you get recordings at the end of the week. But let's fire off some of these questions, Sam. What to do when you know the prospect opens your email but does not respond?
So that's a bomb. It really depends on where you are in the relationship. So when I know that, so if you've just sent the email and they open it and they don't respond, that's okay. Maybe they opened it rushing to a meeting. Maybe they're just looking at it quickly and then a phone call came in. We have no idea. What I do here strategically is when somebody opens up an email that I haven't spoken to in some time. So if I'm pitching to Matt and I'm like, here's my proposal, whatever, and then Matt's lovely and ghosts me and then never talks to me again. If I see that he opens up my email in 6 weeks, I'm like, why? Right? And so and be like, hey, I was just thinking of you today, and here's this article, and here's why I like it, and here's what's important about it, and here's why you should read it, blah, 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 same old stuff. And then Matt will be like, oh my God, I was just opening your email. And I'll be like, no way, really? So I use the timing strategically. If you know that people are opening up your emails and they're not responding, and this happens a lot, I would really encourage you to check your messaging. One of the women that I'm executive coaching sent me 100 of her emails, and they're not great. And that's why she's not getting a response. So take a look at your messaging, right? Are you doing effective messaging? If not, get somebody to help you. It's not a short answer, but there you go.
So email and, so after losing a deal, do you suggest, obviously you mentioned the handwritten note, but also an email? Did you say both or was it just one?
Yeah, so back to the very first point about urgency, I think urgency matters. So I don't want somebody to say to my prospect today, I don't want her to say, I didn't attend, or I'm not going forward with you with the deal. And then for her to get my thanks anyway in 3 weeks. I want to write back immediately. I want to show no hard feelings, right? And that urgency also matters because she knows if I have a proposal out to her, she knows that any email she's going to send me, I'm going to respond. I'm going to open up right away. If you are in sales and you're not opening those emails quickly from prospects that you have proposals to, let's do it, get on it. But so she knows that. So the longer I wait to respond, she's going to think she's upset, she has hard feelings, she's being grumpy, poor sport, whatever. So within an hour, hour and a half, I want to respond and say, thank you so much for blah, blah, blah. And then I'm sending that same email with that same card within 24 hours. I'm asking for her mailing address. I'm sending it to her corporate offices, and just saying thanks anyway. It's a little different now because also you've got to be careful with it. If I ask for somebody's mailing address after they've told me they're not buying me, they might be like, are you going to come murder me? And I'll be like, no, it's okay. I just want to send you a thank you note. A little careful with that.
Got it. So we got about 3 minutes left. I know people have asked some amazing questions, so we might have to take some of this. And Andrew, obviously, I think we could answer some of these ourselves. Not, maybe later on today. But I'll try to get to the ones that I know you can answer in 2 or 3 minutes here. In the LinkedIn About section, is personal information first okay?
I would save it for last. I don't actually think it matters. But at the end of the day, I would save it for last. I'm there, I'm committing to it. Here's why. Somebody is not going to hire you because they like you and then your expertise is shoddy. They're going to hire you because your expertise is great and then they like you, right? The most important thing for them is not that you're a nice guy or gal. The most important thing for them is, can you actually do what they need, right? Not that they like you. So if you put the stuff that's personal first, they're going to be like, hey, what do you do? What do you do? I need to know if you solve my problem. So I would put it first and foremost, here's my expertise. Here's what I can help you do. Here's what our technology or our company does. And then, by the way, I'm awesome and here's why, but more tactfully.
Alex Bleem, he's actually local and a Skins fan as well. He said he kind of reacted. Client recommendations. I think he's saying that overwhelms him. He said he asks his clients for Google reviews, but it seems like they should also be asking for LinkedIn recommendations. Should they be getting LinkedIn recommendations from other sources, or is it really asking clients for both? Or what are your thoughts?
Reviews, I'm guessing that maybe means case studies for marketing, perhaps. Yes.
The Google reviews probably would be from, just from their MSP services. So it's no different than somebody just providing a Yelp review of a company, essentially, but for MSPs, yeah.
I would still ask for a personal recommendation. So that review for the MSP review might be more product-based, experience with your company-based, et cetera. But what was it like to work with me, right? Recommendation that talks about how I handled our opportunity. And then also, once you signed, was I still there? Was I responsive? Did I follow through? Did I actually deliver what I said I would? I would still ask for that. Again, you're not asking for a ton of them, right? But you want to start to build that. Also, ask your former bosses, ask your former peers, ask people if you're younger in your career that you might have interned with, or that were college professors, or that you volunteer with, that can speak to your personality, your character, what you're like. Because if you show that full facet across your entire life, right, and everybody says the same thing about you, that you're pretty kick ass to work with, then that's great. Like that's what we want in your LinkedIn profile. Sorry for the curse.
Oh, good. God, there's so many other questions. We'll probably have to get to them at the back end of this. The good thing is we've got 2 other sales and marketing experts coming on, but Sam, I can almost guarantee this crowd's going to want you back. So there's so many things I wrote down that we didn't even get to talk about. So
definitely lots more to talk about, and we really appreciate it. I mean, even any one of your tips, I'm sure you could go on, a day or 2 seminar about it. But we really appreciate you joining, and we'll definitely be answering some of those other questions and keeping in touch and bringing you back into the community, because I'm certain that we're going to get tons of positive feedback.
Good. No, thanks for having me, and thanks for taking in an outsider for this session. Feel free to connect on LinkedIn. I can answer any questions for you guys. I'm there. But otherwise, thanks, and nice to meet you guys all.
all right, thanks,
Absolutely.
Sam.
Thank you, Sam.
Bye, guys. Take care.
Bye. All right, I think we've got Dana will be letting in a couple panelists as well. But man, Andrew, that was that's so many
Great
nuggets
session.
in there.
Great session.
Oh, wait, Sam's still here. She's still here.
Is everyone? I think everyone's still on, right?
No, you're still on.
Okay.
You're still live.
Next, you can drop off whenever you'd like. Matt and I will stay on, but you can drop off, or you can stick around and answer questions if you like.
I'm gonna run.
All right, bye, Sam.
Bye. But that was a great session. And these are the type of things, I mentioned it just when Sam was on, but these are the type of questions that MSPs are constantly reaching out about. What are really simple things that we can do? And I think that Sam did a great job of talking about ways that you can start to think about, again, connecting with people and making it about the person and about how best to connect with them and find your in with them from a relationship perspective, from building a rapport and understanding what their true needs are in order to start to develop the relationship to develop into the sale and ultimately close it and gain net new partners and clients. And she had some really great items that I loved, that, who are the theys and things that you can do with your subject lines and where to position different pieces and the other questions to ask when you unravel the conversation. So there's lots there, but I don't know how many of you heard the homework. She did give you homework. So your homework is to update your LinkedIn. And I know many of you too don't do a lot of that updating inside of LinkedIn. So if you have any simple questions, feel free to reach out to Matt and I, but we're going to dig into the next session. So
Yeah.
is about to kick off the next panel, and this is a great one. This is bringing in some sales and marketing team members from abroad. I'm going to let Matt introduce them specifically and start talking through what we have to offer for this afternoon session.
Yeah, but you know what? I also am going to take advantage of this fact because I have not done recommendations in a really long time, and I knew it's something I've slacked off on completely. So if any MSP here is listening and has worked with me and enjoys working with me, please write me a recommendation on LinkedIn.
Matt is finding his angle right now. Talk about doing what was just said at the moment that it was said. So I'm sure you're going to get a note right now. Someone's going to do a recommendation for you. You absolutely should. Obviously, Matt is awesome. But let's chat through this afternoon. So before they pop in, go ahead and share some names and some backgrounds.
Oh, okay, for the panelists. I was like, I thought you meant for recommendations.
No.
Yeah, so we've got Paul Green who will be joining us from Paul Green Marketing over in the UK. His obviously focuses on marketing, and he has a great podcast that I would highly recommend everybody should listen to. I think they're usually between 24 and 30 minutes. I'm sure I'll be able to provide you guys the link as well. And then FIONA CHALLIS will be joining us as well from Sales Academy, Next Gen Sales Academy over in the UK. And they both know each other pretty well. And so I think we'll have some really good banter here. And I've connected with you guys on podcasts, and we've been on each other's webinars now, not together, all three of us. So this will be pretty exciting.
And I will drop off, but hello, FIONA. Hello, Paul. Have fun chatting, and I will see everyone after.
Yep. And FIONA, you are on mute currently, just as an FYI. So there we go. So I'll let you guys kind of give your own intro a little bit. I know I sort of did, but I don't think I did it justice. So Paul, we'll start with you and then go to FIONA.
Yeah, cool. Thank you. And that was such a great session that we had on there. So yeah, my name's Paul Green. I run a business called Paul Green's MSP Marketing, and based in the UK. And you mentioned my podcast there, Matt, which you were a guest on. Was it? I think it was episode 4 or 9. I can't remember. It was one of the most listened to episodes.
Was it? Oh, you didn't tell me that.
Well, actually, there was only one other episode that had a greater listening figure, and that was Fiona's, which had better listening figures than yours. That had 7 listeners. Yours had 5 listeners.
Got it.
So I do a podcast. It's called Paul Green's MSP Marketing Podcast, and that's on all your favorite platforms. I've also written a book on MSP marketing, and it's completely free. And we have copies to post out to MSPs in the States. If you just go on to Paul Green's MSPmarketing.com, and then right up at the top it says get a copy of my book, and it is a physical book as well. I mean, we'll send you a PDF instantly, but we have something like 2,000 copies sat in a warehouse I think it's in Chicago, and they will physically post one of those out to you within the next couple of days or so.
Yeah, and by the way, Paul, Heather Johnson said she was also on your podcast last week.
Yes, she was.
So.
Yes. three listens on that one. 3 listens on that one.
And Fiona, how about yourself?
Cheers. Hi, Matt. Hi, Paul. So my name's Fiona CHALLIS, for those who haven't met me before, and I run the Next Gen Sales Academy, which is a sales training academy that purely works with the MSP industry. We specialize in helping you to get your sales message right and helping you to get you and your teams better at sales prospecting and closing more business. So again, Matt, you and I have worked together quite a bit, and we've done quite a few podcasts together and webinars. Paul Green and I have also worked together for many years. In fact, we started our speaking career together. How many years ago, Paul?
At least 10.
20?
No, you might look that old, but I don't. It was about 10, 12 years, something like that.
Yeah, I think it is about that, isn't it? Yeah, it's a long time.
Oh, very nice. We're glad to finally bring us all together, and eventually, like I told Paul, or I think I mentioned to both of you, we'll finally at some point be able to grab a beer in a pub next time I'm in London and we're traveling again. But well, so the good thing is we've got lots of questions carried over from the other one that we can certainly get to at some point. But we already got a lot of questions that people had asked us prior to this panel. They were really excited about it, and I think what we'll do is we'll kind of start on the marketing side of things, and then kind of shift to the sales. But I mean, we all know that it all blends together pretty much. So we might start with one person providing it, but we want to hear kind of everybody's thoughts from both the marketing and sales side. So Paul, I guess the basic question is, we've got MSPs. Many are doing marketing, many probably are not, and many may have pulled that back right now. But if you're not doing any marketing, I mean, where should you even start? I mean, that's kind of that basic question, right? How do you even get started?
Yeah, it's a great question. So if you're not doing marketing, then punch yourself in the face and start doing marketing, because what I love about MSPs is that there's so many good things. There's monthly recurring revenue everywhere, and we all know that. Having run a business, anyone who's ever run a business that doesn't have monthly recurring revenue. So if you had a break fix business back in the day, or you run another kind of business, you'll know it's just hard. And selling is hard, and Fiona will tell us how to make selling easier, but it's still just hard work. And the beautiful thing about MSPs is you sell it once and you keep them for 20 years, and they keep paying you money every single month for 20 years. So it makes it a very, very beautiful business to work with. The downside of that is it makes many MSPs really, really lazy at marketing, because you can be technically brilliant at what you do and deliver an amazing service and have great retention, but it doesn't really matter if you only win 1 new client a year. It matters to you personally because it frustrates you, but from a marketing point of view, MSPs last longer with bad marketing skills. And in the rest of the world, if you have bad marketing skills, you tend to fall over more quickly, because if you can't market properly, you can't sell properly. Marketing delivers the warmed up hot prospects for sales to sort of take away and turn into revenue. So if you're doing nothing right now, in fact, the last panelist, Sam, she was talking about LinkedIn. That's the thing to do. If you've only got time to do one thing, if you've only got 20 or 30 minutes a day, which isn't really enough to do marketing properly, but if that's all you've got, get on LinkedIn, work your LinkedIn, use the automated tools, beef up your profiles. I'll give you a recommendation, Matt, all of those kind of things. And just something as simple as, if you could do 30 minutes a day, every work day on LinkedIn, that's 2.5 hours a week, which adds up very quickly to 10 hours a month. And that alone, that's, it's 120 hours a year on pure marketing. And LinkedIn is one of the best marketing channels for MSPs right now. So I think that's what I would do if you had no time for anything, or if you're not doing anything right now. What really works best, though, is long-term multi-touch point campaigns. So you've got to put yourself in the mind of the prospect and say, well, what if, I'm connected to them on LinkedIn and they see a bit of my content on LinkedIn, and then I send them a message on LinkedIn, and they may read it, they may not, but then at the same time they see my advert on Facebook, and at the same time they get my educational email, and then a couple of days later something arrives from me in the post and it's physically sat on their desk, and then they hear me on a podcast or they see me on a webinar. And all of these things can be done fairly easily. The technology to do all of these things and to automate them or to outsource them has been there for some time. And the MSPs that are really, really doing really well right now, and I mean during COVID, but we're also doing well before COVID, are the ones that are taking a kind of a mature, long-term approach to marketing. They're building audiences of people. They're educating those audiences about how to buy because people don't know how to buy technology. They don't know how to buy tech support. They really, really don't. So they're taking their time to educate people. And critically, people only buy when they're ready to buy. And so the MSP that's taken the time to build relationships using multiple touch points, lots and lots of different methods, at that point, at the point they're ready to buy, it's very likely that you will get a place at the table to talk to them, if not the place at the table. I'm sure Fiona would tell us you'd much rather be going in and talking to someone, being the favored MSP. You're their first choice because they feel like they know you, because they've been touch pointed by you 20 or 30 times over the last year.
Yeah, and Fiona, from your side, so many MSPs, we did a poll yesterday. I can't remember the exact results, but and it's not anything new. Referral-based, sales is one of the highest percentages, but we all know that that's not, sustainable for most MSPs. It's not a sustainable model. I mean, yeah, if somebody's just about to dive into sales really for the first time and spend any money or get themselves out there, what's kind of that first step on the sales side, you think?
Yeah, I mean, just to echo what Paul said. So, I mean, I think, years ago, it used to be very much sales and marketing, but selling today, it's actually more the opposite way around. It's more marketing and sales. So, as an MSP, you've got to start marketing. You've got to use this opportunity to start marketing yourself out there, first of all. Lead with education, lead with business insights, and lead with, what are the challenges your customers are facing in their business today? What are the problems they're facing? And, and how are you already helping other people in your existing customer base to actually overcome those challenges? That's the kind of messaging that they want to hear. You use it in your marketing, you use it in your sales, but actually from a referral point of view, Matt, there's actually never been a better time now for MSPs to get referrals as well, because those people who, went through the COVID-19 having to work remotely, if they weren't already working with an MSP, they can now deal with other customers in the same industry who were working with an MSP. They were able to get back up and running a lot quicker than those who weren't. So it's a really good opportunity for MSPs now to really reach beyond their existing customer base, to reach out for the referrals, and then use your marketing to generate more new business and build that pipeline of the future up. But again, focus on education and focus on insights.
Excellent. And Paul, I already took your advice about LinkedIn. I just posted a picture of us doing this live while you guys were talking.
Fantastic.
So, we won't do this. Will not all be about COVID, but I think it's important to just at least bring it up and talk about, because COVID certainly changed how people have been marketing over the last couple of months, and it's still going to have ramifications moving forward. So, Paul, I guess, how have you noticed, what have been the changes some of the MSPs you're talking to have changed their marketing?
So I think COVID changes everything, if I'm honest. And I think, and I've been saying for a number of months, and as have other, people within the channel, within the industry, that I think short-term people, when we went into this, people who were already struggling struggled more. People who were already doing well carried on doing well and almost did better. And those who were kind of sat in the middle doing okay have continued to do okay. And so essentially it's accelerated. And I don't know about the States, but certainly in the UK, we were due a recession anyway, because we've got an idiot leading the country. We've done Brexit, which is just insane, and he's going to completely destroy the economy. So we've got two economy destroying events happening at the same time. Yay. And, you know, it's a, we were due a massive recession.
Really us, Paul.
Oh, don't go there. You can talk. Ireland had a, what was it, like a 20-year recession or something. They completely ran out of potatoes. It was awful. So that was probably horrendously offensive, Fiona. I apologize. So, well, I've completely forgotten what I was talking about now. Yes. So we MSPs that were doing all right are still do. It's accelerated people along a little bit. Here's the thing. I think over a period of time, we're going to see a mass transition of clients. So all MSPs are going to lose clients. This is a fact. If you haven't already lost clients, you've been lucky, or you've done a really, really good job. But you're going to lose clients because businesses are going to go bust. They're going to go under. There are going to be all sorts of acquisitions. There's going to be a complete change in the business landscape, because things aren't going to get back to how they were tomorrow. If they could, this would be just a blip. But I think this is going to be a 2 to 3 year event. And obviously, I'm just making this up, but it's an educated guess. A 2 to 3 year event with a 5-year hangover. That's what it feels like to me. And a lot of the MSPs that I talk to and work with, and I work with more than 200 MSPs within the UK and about a third of those in the States, they're actually, many of them are really quite excited, because they see this as an opportunity to steal clients from the lazy MSPs that have done a bad job. So imagine you're an MSP right now. You've been looking after your clients for the last 12, 13 weeks really well. They're already quite well set up for working from home, because you were sort of a bit more future thinking than your competitors. Then when lockdown happened, you got them sorted out quickly. You were ringing them every couple of times a week to check they were okay. You were talking to all their users. You were upping your service levels and doing more, and you've continued to do that. And your clients are delighted right now. And as they're starting to drift back to their workplace, you're getting them set up for this hybrid, long-term hybrid operation where any person can work from anywhere at any time, which is, you know, that's going to be the norm. And I suspect once we've got that, none of us are going to want to give that up. So you've done that in your MSP, and well done to you. That's the right thing to do. And that's why you've kept your clients, apart from those that have gone into financial difficulty. But there are lots of MSPs out there that have done a really shoddy job. They didn't get their clients set up well for work from home. Their clients are tolerating workarounds and bad situations. They're tolerating bad security. I've heard some horrendous stories. Matt, I know you've heard some horrendous stories. I'm sure you have, Fiona, as well. And I think there are more bad MSPs out there than there are good MSPs. Let's not call them bad or good. More lazy MSPs than proactive MSPs. The kind of MSPs that don't attend events like this. The kind of MSPs that don't talk about amazing products like ID Agent, and don't look at things like sales training and marketing and all of that kind of stuff. They're heads down. They're perhaps under-resourced. For whatever reason, they're just not doing a good job. Now, in the previous market, so 3-4 months ago, they still kept their clients, because MSPs benefit, and I touched on this earlier, MSPs benefit from what's called inertia loyalty, where to ordinary people, it just feels like too much work to switch from one MSP to another, because you've got, you know, your server thing and that cloud thing and the security thing, and it's all just too much for them. It's like switching accountants or switching banks. People just try not to do it. And I think that's going to shift. So I called this the great big client grab, and I think it's coming in the next few weeks. I think as more and more, certainly in the UK, we're returning to workplaces a bit too fast. And I know the lockdown's sort of being eased around the world, but the MSPs that have done a good job have this opportunity to steal clients, but only if they market and market and market and market and keep marketing and market themselves almost to death. And I read a quote yesterday. I can't remember who said it. It was either Jay Abraham or Dan Kennedy, both of whom are very famous marketers, both based in the States. They're both, I think Jay Abraham's in his 70s, Dan Kennedy's in his late 60s. And they are, you know, if you're really into your marketing, you seek these guys out, you buy all their books. I mean, I spent $10,000 on Jay Abraham's hard disk. It wasn't stolen. It was actually, he was selling the contents of his hard drive. And I spent $10,000 on that. And I still have only listened to about half the stuff on there. And it's been worth every single penny. I've made hundreds of thousands of dollars off the content on there. And one of those guys said, if you don't get a complaint at least once every day, then you're not marketing hard enough. So if you don't get a complaint from your prospects, you know, at least once a day to, hey, stop emailing me or stop sending me stuff, you're not marketing hard enough. And I think for most MSPs who don't like marketing, didn't get into this to market, that's a really difficult thing to do. isn't it? It's a really difficult thing because you if it's not your thing, why would you want to go out there and do more of it? But you cannot, as an MSP, you cannot overmarket yourself. It is physically impossible to overmarket yourself because there are tens of thousands of prospects out there, and a large proportion of them are going to switch, or sorry, a proportion of them are going to switch in the next, let's say, the next 3 to 6 to 9 months.
Yep. Yeah. No. Yeah, we're hearing a lot of stories of MSPs picking up, clients. And again, I mean, some maybe they weren't even MSPs that were bad. They went out of business for a variety of different reasons, and so they're picking up clients from that. And yeah, putting yourself in a position so that they actually know who you are is obviously very critical to that. I mean, Fiona, like from the sales side, I mean, are the people that are in your sales academy right now, I mean, are they just salivating right now? Like, do you see this as kind of in the same way that this is this huge kind of land grab opportunity for some of the MSPs that are really putting themselves out there?
Yeah, so we kind of see both. So we have, MSPs who actually have done a really good job. They got their customers back up and running in record time, but, they still have to go out, as Paul said, you still have to go out and market yourself. You have to demonstrate the value that actually you did provide to them from a business perspective, because the last thing you want them to do is when things kind of settle and calm down is you don't want them to look back at what that MSP did and then see them as a cost rather than a value to the business, and as a result, some end users did start to cut costs or reduce their spend or reduce their monthly recurring revenue or their commit to the MSPs. So now you have to make sure that you're in your sales market, your sales message, your marketing message, make sure you are still demonstrating the value that you are giving to that business. And then from a new business perspective, you have to go out and do the same. Make sure that you're demonstrating with case studies, use stories like Sam was talking about earlier, use stories about how you added, benefits to another business in that industry, and set yourself up as that trusted advisor in a particular industry so that when that land grab exercise happens, you're the one that they're going to turn to. But now is the time for you to start doing that. So we do two things with the partners we work with. Those MSPs who did a really good job, we make sure that we're shouting from the hilltops about just how good they are, so they're seen as value. But also those who maybe say, we could have done a little bit better, we focus more on managing tickets than we did in helping to solve business challenges and actually help them to achieve more. We're now going back out with more value-added messaging just to make sure that they do know the value they can add, and they're now focusing on more business continuity and business planning for the future. So for example, in the UK, as Paul said, a lot of us are starting to go back into office premises now. So we're focusing lots of campaigns on making sure that you've got your plans in place and your ducks in a row as such, so that when you do go back into the office, everything is already set up in advance, and you're adding the value that way to make sure that if you didn't do a great job with the remote working, you're doing one getting them back into the office.
Yeah, absolutely. And Fiona, you mentioned the word value, and so kind of a follow-up to that. I mean, how is the message around selling the value of what MSPs bring to businesses over the last few months? How has that kind of changed?
Yeah, I think it's changed dramatically, but I think it's actually changed in the better for MSPs. And it's hard because it is a big crisis we've gone through, but any crisis we go through in the marketplace, there's normally an opportunity and there's normally challenges. The opportunity here for MSPs is that actually businesses are now beginning to see working with an MSP as an essential part of their business strategy if they worked with a good MSP, rather than seeing it as a cost. So I think actually now, some MSPs have had to really try and drum that message home about how important it is to work with an MSP. Now it's actually becoming easier for you to sell that value because end users themselves, businesses themselves, are starting to see the importance. And it's because of this crisis, it's because of having to move so quickly into remote working that they're now seeing that value of working with an MSP. I think the other thing that's changed a lot, Matt and Paul, you've probably seen this as well, is for some businesses, MSPs have been talking for a long time about cloud migrations, about the importance of security and cyber security, the importance of having business continuity plans, and they really had to drum that message home. But now a lot of businesses are actually taking some of those business continuity projects, some cloud migrations that were maybe put on the back burner, but they're now actually becoming more of a priority overnight because of what's happened. So in terms of demonstrating that value, it's demonstrating what they need right now, which is getting back into office working from remote working, focusing in on cloud migrations, the security side of it, and business continuity planning, really demonstrating that you are unique in how you offer that value as opposed to traditional reseller VARs who are just selling tin.
Got it. Yeah, and I mean, Paul, I guess on the marketing side, are you starting to see MSPs really build their marketing around presenting the value?
Yes. And I hesitate with that because I agree with everything that Fiona has said and says. Fiona and I have different approaches to the same problem, and always have done, and that's why we're really complementary when we work together. I'm more of a fan of just direct marketing, which is an impolite way of saying just hammer them and hammer them and hammer them, and just hit them and hit them and hit them, and just be there when the timing is right. But yes, I think saying that if when you're in front of someone, if you don't have a good value proposition, then you're not going to sell. You know, I don't teach sales, I don't touch sales, I don't enjoy selling. And most of the MSPs I work with are quite good at selling because they don't do enough of it. So they turn up and they tend to get a 1 in 3 or a 2 in 3 close rate. Fiona obviously improves close rates like that. But yeah, I think you've got to have your value proposition right, but at the same time, you've got to work really hard to get in front of people. And that's the thing I more focus on.
So you're saying if you had a dark web scan from ID Agent, you would just throw it right on the table, and Fiona might be a little bit more consultative about it.
Maybe. Well, of course, I've listened to you saying, whatever you do, don't throw the dark web scan on the table. But no, and actually, that's a great example of value add, because we talk about ID Agent in our world all the time. And in fact, Matt, you and I first met because one of my clients said to me, "Hey, have you heard about this thing called ID Agent? Let me show you what it can do." And steam came out my ears, and I thought, because all I could see was a marketing tool. Yeah. Obviously, it's a great technology tool, but it's a fantastic marketing tool. And actually taking a smart approach to using that to build value. They don't know. Your average business owner or business manager, they don't know at all. How many of them would just go on to "Have I been pwned?" and put in their email address and their head explodes, and that's nothing. That's like 1% of what's in ID Agent. So this is the beautiful opportunity, is where intelligent people with some very intelligent solutions talking to other intelligent people, but people who don't know and don't care. And when I say don't care, I mean they're almost a bit disinterested in it, which is why, Fiona, as you were saying exactly that, we've been banging on about cloud and remote working and all of this for years, and suddenly, early March, people start listening because they had to. And this has actually presented some huge opportunities right now.
Absolutely. And by the way, you have a fan commenting, David Gillespie. You should check out Paul's latest campaign in a box, excellent marketing with multiple touch points.
Thank you.
And it goes on a little farther than that, but
that's very kind of you. Thank you, David. Would that be the one at my service, mspmarketingedge.com? Would that be the one that David was talking about? Yeah, I think it might be. Yeah,
Paul, you're very much like me, I think. With the
you were just absolutely shameless salespeople.
Oh man. So I definitely want to make sure we also answer questions, because a lot of times we wait to question and answer to the end, but sometimes we get questions. But one of the questions people are asking, and I mean, I think I know the answer for this for both of you, but what social platforms are you both using to get your businesses out there, and should MSPs be following similar suit? And maybe Fiona, I'll start with you on that one.
Yeah, no, I'm the same as Paul. I'm a big LinkedIn fan. So LinkedIn is my primary social media channel that I use. I do a little bit on Facebook, a little bit on Twitter. If I'm speaking at events, I would tend to use all three of them, but my primary one I use is LinkedIn.
How about you, Paul?
Yeah, I use LinkedIn reluctantly. I don't enjoy LinkedIn at all. I think it's a horrendous platform to use, but it is the best way to reach B2B. It is the B2B marketing platform. Yeah. Personally, I love Facebook. I like the personal connection. I have a Facebook group. There's 800 MSPs in it, and it's taken, I think it's nearly 3 years to get to that point, and it's a great community. In fact, you were in there, Matt, until we booted you out because we instigated a no vendor rule, and you're sorely missed. You're sorely missed every day.
Yes, I
and the MSP marketing Facebook group. There you go. There's the plug. No, but I like that. I like that as a tool because that makes it personal. You know, and I spend nearly an hour a day just in that group alone, answering questions, talking to people, and guess what? I get clients off the back of that. And so I have a direct link between an hour of my time that I'm not sat with my 9-year-old daughter or enjoying my life, an hour of my time working, and ultimately I get sales. You know, whenever I get a new client, inevitably there's someone who's listened to the podcast and has interacted in some way, or they're in the MSP marketing group, or they're on my email list because they've got a copy of my book. And it's virtually unknown for me to get a client of someone who's never heard of me before. And that's why I love Facebook. That's why I love LinkedIn, because all of these platforms, they allow you to build a relationship. You know, this is exactly what we were talking about. People only buy when they're ready to buy. You've got to build a relationship with them first. Now, for MSPs, the problem you've got is people only switch MSPs once every 10 years. And so you can sometimes have to build a relationship for years and years and years before that person is ready to switch. But it really is worth it, because one new client can be worth $100,000, $200,000 to an MSP over a period of time.
Yep. Yeah. And I'll also answer that. Obviously I use LinkedIn. You know, I wasn't originally wanting to use Facebook, obviously, because you know you have your personal stuff that you do, but MSPs are all over Facebook as well. And just a tip to give people, if you are, you know, you don't want to necessarily have too much crossover on your personal with Facebook, you can create lists within your friends. So when I connect with an MSP, I put them under MSP, because also my friends don't want to be inundated with ID agent updates all the time. They don't care. So when you post, you can actually, so I have a thing where I just post to MSP partners, and just the MSP industry is going to see that post. So that's, you know, a kind of a tip. Should companies, or should I share from a company or a personal, from a LinkedIn perspective, Paul?
Personal, because people buy from people. And if you look at LinkedIn's feed, you get more content from people than you do from companies, from business pages. In fact, LinkedIn is essentially a copy of Facebook. And, you know, when Microsoft acquired LinkedIn a number of years ago, they've done what is Microsoft's modus operandi. And this is just my opinion on this. They've taken the market leader, which is Facebook, and they've said, make our product like that. And that, you know, they did that with Teams. Teams is or certainly started out as a version of Slack, and you could argue that Teams has catapulted past Slack now. But LinkedIn is an interpretation of Facebook. So, whatever works on Facebook, you can more or less assume it will work the same way on LinkedIn. So when you share as a person, more people see it. In the same way that the more people interact with your content in the first, I think it's about the first 15, 20 minutes, the more people will see it. It works exactly the same on those two platforms. Some people ask, should I share it on my business page and then reshare it for my personal? No. Stick something on your business page now and again. Stick something on your personal account every day. And if you're the business owner, you use your LinkedIn. And if you don't want to personally do LinkedIn, and I'll admit now, I don't do my own LinkedIn. I do my own Facebook stuff, but I don't do my own LinkedIn. I have a marketing manager called James. He does all of that for me. And we'll just sort of talk now and again. He'll say, well, how do you want me to reply to this or whatsoever? And because I don't personally enjoy LinkedIn, but it's my profile. So if James, you know, if you've got a salesperson who's building up their own personal profile on LinkedIn, and then they leave you 2 years down the line, they're going to take their LinkedIn away, and they'll have spent 2 years of your time building up their LinkedIn, which is no good. So the MSP owner should let, you know, if you've got salespeople or just people building your LinkedIn, it should be your IP, your intellectual property that you keep because you're the last person to leave the business. And when you leave the business, you don't care anyway, because you're either dead or you've sold the business. So absolutely your own personal LinkedIn.
Got it. So, you know, maybe we'll step a little forward. We'll probably come back to a couple like kind of quick hitting questions that some of the audience has asked. But you know, you've done the marketing, you've done the sales process, you're now in front of the customer. So Fiona, I'll kind of kick this off with you. You know, how do you talk to MSPs about having more business conversations versus technology conversations? Because we know MSPs love talking technology.
Yeah, it is always a challenge. I mean, most of the MSPs I work with, most of them actually hate the whole thought of selling. So, you know, even if they have a good marketing machine, once they're in front of the customer, they just kind of freeze and just hate selling. But, you know, the good news is, to be honest, that what's actually working for the good MSPs today and MSPs who are winning more business today, they are the ones that are having more business conversations as opposed to technology conversations. And again, as a result of what's happened with COVID-19, you know, more and more end users are now seeing actually how technology relates into their business as well. So one of the things we do with the partners we work with is teach them a 6-step framework where you can lead a business conversation and actually start to sell the change that the technology is going to give them, as opposed to speeds and feeds and features and benefits. So one of the things we do is we say, you know, ask them what are the key business outcomes they're looking to achieve from having the technology in place, but then drill down to the different levels of the business. So, you know, what are the key financial outcomes they're trying to achieve? What are the KPIs they're trying to help you to get them to achieve? What are the business capabilities and processes you're trying to get to them to improve? And then have a look at the business impact. So the business impact they had from COVID-19, look at what was the impact, how quickly were they able to get things back up and running again, and then that will show you that gap. So if you kind of lead your sales conversation using those 6 different reference points, that will guide you through a full business conversation. And at the end of it, you'll then translate technology and your services into how your customers can actually achieve those business outcomes. And, you know, the good news for most MSPs is if you ask any B2B decision makers today what they're looking for from an MSP or what they're looking for from a salesperson, there is so much research out there that will tell you the last thing they're looking for is a sales pitch. What they're actually looking for is people who can lead with business insights and who can lead with really showing business outcomes that you can help them to achieve. But also they're a lot more likely to engage with you if you can actually share insights into the problems and challenges they're going to have in their business. So my advice to any of the MSPs on today's call is make sure that you select a niche or select a vertical so that you can really go deep into that business conversation. You know, I know some people think we're leaving money on the table if we just pick 1 or 2, but you're not. You're actually losing money if you're not honing in and picking a niche or a vertical. So pick 2 or 3 maximum niches or verticals that you can specialize in, and then use that 6-part framework to guide you through and your salespeople through that whole business conversation. Because I promise you, you are 3 to 4 times more likely to win business when you lead with business as opposed to selling technology. And again, I'm happy to share that with everybody after today's call, Matt, if they want to go through that framework.
Excellent. No, that's great advice. And I know somebody's already asking about how they can get more information, so we'll provide a link for that. Paul, somebody's asking, what planet are you joining us from? Did you see that?
I was just looking at that. What the hell have I said?
It's the background. It's the background.
It's 20 to 10 at night in in the UK. It's night time. Yeah, it's very nice.
That's funny.
I interpreted that as I was out there.
Couldn't we both? Maybe
that is true, Paul.
Oh man, so I'm going to try to position this to set both of you up on this one. So MSPs are often thought of as a cost center, right, for small businesses, mid-sized organizations. But MSPs have been stamped by government as essential employees, which I think is incredible. And I don't know the answer, Paul, what you're going to say. I mean, I absolutely think MSPs should be putting this out there that they're an essential worker. But I guess I'll start with Fiona and then we'll go to Paul. You know, Fiona, has the message you think changed because of that? And then Paul, is there a marketing message around this essential worker type of thing?
Yeah, so I mean, I think it has changed, and I think that MSPs really need to now change their entire sales and marketing approach to demonstrate that to more customers in that given vertical or niche that they work in. But I think the way you do it is very important. So, you know, I get asked all the time, especially with everything in COVID-19, you know, should we still be selling? Is it still ethical to be selling with everything that's going on? And my answer to that is yes, you will still be selling, you will still be marketing, but your message message and your approach is going to change. So instead of just going out there and blatantly selling, you know, use your current customers, use case studies, interview customers, use videos, share stories about how you've already been an essential part of somebody else's business recovery, and you'll get a much better response if you do it that way. Everybody loves a story today. They want to see what's happening to others in their industry. So you help your existing customers to get that message out there for you, and in the long run, you both will win.
That's great advice. And Paul, go ahead.
What Fiona just said, that. So here's exactly what I'm recommending to my clients right now, and they're in the middle of doing this. So you asked, is it important that IT is essential workers? Well, to us it is, and the government said it is, but no one else cares. And good marketing is not about you, it's about putting yourself in the shoes of the prospect and looking at everything through their eyes. In fact, there's a great phrase for this: to influence what John Smith buys, you must look through John Smith's eyes. So the people that we want to steal from their incumbent MSPs, if they had a good experience over the last 13 weeks, they're not leaving. There's, you know, we don't know who those people are, and we don't really care about those people because they're not going anywhere. And you would hope that would be the majority of your clients. For the people who've had a bad experience, the marketing for the next 3 to 6 months should be this: how well did your IT support company look after you during the lockdown or during COVID? And then, so you hit them with that message, you literally ask that question to frame it in their head. How well did your IT support company look after you during COVID? And then you do exactly what Fiona said. You give them social proof of what your clients have said. So literally, don't listen to what we say. This is what our clients say. And you go to your clients and you say to them, please, can I have a testimonial about how well we've looked after you during the lockdown? And you literally send them an email. I mean, I got all of my MSPs to do this, and a majority of them did it. And, you know, there was one guy, got 10 emails back in one day. All of them were usable. And I said to all of them, don't just pick up the text from the emails, screenshot the emails, blank out, you know, anything that's sensitive. It's okay for someone for it to say, oh, you know, hi, Matt. Yeah, no problems. I'll do something for you. The way you looked after us during a screenshot of that has infinite amounts of power compared to just, you know, copying that text into something. So could you imagine? I mean, put yourself in the mind of the prospect. You've got back to your desk. It's the first time in the office or with your staff for a number of weeks, and a 4-page letter turns up. And on that 4-page letter, physical print letter, it's perhaps in a green envelope. It's perhaps got a stamp on it. You remember stamps, don't you? They're what you've got to lick them and actually put them on. Perhaps it's even been written in pen by a human. And so it immediately stands out. And you think, what's this? And you open it up, and there's a 4-page sales letter inside. It's all nicely folded. It's printed on expensive paper. It's full color. And it's written really well. And it says, how well did your IT support company look after you during COVID? This is what our clients said about us. The rest of page 1, the whole of page 2, the whole of page 3 is screenshots of what clients have said. And then on the back, it's a very simple message of, if you wouldn't say stuff like this about your IT support company, we really should talk. Go to yourwebsite.com/your name. So yourwebsite.com/Matt, and that would be a Calendly booking page, you know, calendly.com, or if you must use Microsoft Bookings because it's part of 365, but it's appalling. But Calendly is a better way of doing it. And it's just a page. They can access your live calendar, and you say to them, book a 15-minute call. Now you might send out 500 of those letters. If you send those out to existing prospects who have some relationship with you, that would get an okay response rate. If you sent it out to a cold list, it would get a pretty poor response rate. But even off that 500, if you got, let's say, 5 people booking an appointment, Fiona, 5 out of 500, how many of those do you think would become clients? 2?
Say again, sorry, Paul.
If you had five people booking off a letter like that, you'd get 2 or 3 clients off that.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, and I mean, probably even more so because it's social proof.
It is. And the people who book the appointments, book the 15-minute calls, are doing so because they want to have that, they want to take the next step. They want to have that conversation. So you wouldn't get a very, very high response rate, but that would be an impeccable campaign. In fact, if you sent that letter and at the same time sent them an email, and at the same time targeted them with a custom audience on Facebook, so they're seeing an advert about exactly the same thing, and at the same time you sent them a LinkedIn message, and then you got someone in your office to phone them at the same time, that is a multi-touch point campaign such as we were talking about earlier. And the beautiful thing is you don't need to do it for all 500 people in one go. You could do 50 this week. You could do a different 50 the week after, different 50 the week after. This is a 10-week campaign, hitting 50 people every single week. It's beautiful, absolutely beautiful.
Excellent advice there. And Heather shares that. She said, really love it. Great advice. It's kind of nice having this chat just scrolling down. I like to be able to have that live interaction. So Fiona, I'm going to hit you with this question, and then I think we'll probably bring Andrew in, and there's a bunch of kind of more quick hit questions and then some Q&A from the audience that they've submitted, some from earlier, but I think I know they're applicable to this group as well. But, you know, a lot of MSPs, we kind of talk about the fear, you know, the fear factor. They don't like sales. You mentioned that. I guess what piece of advice would you give somebody that just is struggling to get over that hurdle of like, they just are scared to do sales?
Yeah, no, it's a really good question. So, I mean, the very first thing I would say is, number one, stop thinking about it as hardcore sales. You know, hardcore cold calling today. You know, I used to run a sales team for McAfee. We used to make 120 cold calls a day. It was, you know, hardcore banging the phone all day. That's not the best way to go out and win new business today. You're better to take the approach that Paul's talking about, which is lead with your marketing first, build up the awareness, build up the education, and then selling actually becomes a lot easier. But I think, you know, first of all, don't see it as hardcore selling. Number two, pick a niche or pick a vertical that you can really specialize in. And actually the MSPs who are selling more today and winning more new business, they're doing it because they're seeing themselves as more of a problem solver rather than a salesperson. And, you know, most MSPs that I work with, yes, they hate selling, but they're very good at solving problems. So if you focus in on what are the key problems you're having in your business, what are the key challenges you're facing, and then get into that business outcome part, you become more of a problem solver rather than a salesperson. And most MSPs are comfortable and very comfortable when they know they're actually solving business problems. So focus in on that part and the rest becomes a lot easier. And, you know, shameless plug, connect with me on LinkedIn if you want, as Matt and Paul have done it. So just connect in with me on LinkedIn. I have lots of free on-demand training you guys can access, and we'll show you how to lead with those business outcomes, but also see yourself as that problem solver. Selling becomes much more enjoyable when you do it that way.
Yeah, Fiona, this was purely a thought leadership session. We were not supposed to be promoting ourselves.
It's hard to stop when you're good at sales and marketing, man. It's really, you can't stop.
No, I'm kidding. I'm putting all of our LinkedIn, including Andrew's, in the chat box for everybody. We love connecting with people. Oh man. So Andrew, you can pop in the next minute or two. I'm almost afraid to ask you this question, Paul, because it could probably take you down the longest answer ever.
I'll make it short.
Do you recommend Google Ads?
It depends. That's actually a really difficult short answer question. So it depends on your marketplace. I have an MSP I'm working with in Amsterdam, in the Netherlands, in Europe, and he's putting Google Ads out, and it's relatively low cost, and he's killing it. Probably because his competitors just aren't all over it. And then I've got plenty of other big city MSPs I work with, and there's just no point. You're paying $20, $30 a click, and you know the payback on Google Ads can be great because, as I said earlier, the lifetime value of a client to you could be $200,000. But the question is, are you willing to spend $5,000 to $10,000 to acquire that person? And it's you know, that's the kind of cost that you could be looking at in big cities. To the per click cost imagine in you know, New York City, what would that be? That would be insane. That must be $40, $50 per click. And it might take 100 clicks to get a lead or to get a prospect. And you know, it's yeah. So on the whole, I say to people, try not to do Google Ads. It's great. What Google Ads are good for are generating immediate needs, which we call break-fix work. And we don't want break-fix work. We want monthly recurring revenue. So unless you're doing it already and it works for you, and I do have some MSPs I'm working with who, some of them have put themselves through 25-hour-long Udemy courses, you know, udemy.com. And there's a great course on there. If you type in Google Ads training, I think it's the first course that comes up. Never bite the first time you go to Udemy, by the way. If you go back 3 or 4 times, the price always comes down. And on the courses, it's like an automated price drop. And some of them have put themselves through that, and they do really well with Google Ads. But they'll happily tell you, and I'll give you a British sterling one. They say about £3,000 per client, and that's in little towns in the United Kingdom. So you know, in big cities in the US, that's going to be $10,000 easily.
Got it.
For most people, they just don't have the cash to do that.
Yeah.
And
It's
Andrew,
true. Go ahead.
Before we officially bring you back in, Mom's going to get mad at me if I don't do the poll.
The poll question's coming. Okay. let's launch the poll, Matt. And so one of the things I'll say this while the poll is launching, and then I'll go over this. Actually, it's up. So everyone, what you're seeing right now is our poll question, and Fiona and Paul and Matt and I will talk through this. But how much time are you spending on sales and marketing every day? That's our question. Add in and make sure that you're answering it. Is it 0 to 1 hour? Or are you just spending a little bit of time, 1 to 3 hours, or more than 3 hours? So as they're digging in and answering this, I want to say one of the things that I absolutely love, and the thing about events like this that are so great, is bringing together multiple sales and marketing companies. And I love being in the same space. And at Marketopia, we partner really well with lots of other marketing companies and sales companies, and it's great. And one of the things that I love rehearing over and over again is the consistencies. We all see the same exact things, and we all share very similar insights to what can help the MSP community. And I loved when you dug into a little bit, just saying, you've got to be out there. Fiona, you touched on MSPs asking, do we market still? Do we not? One of the things that I've been sharing with a lot of our partners is, oftentimes when that's asked, people are really trying to be self-aware, right? They're trying to say, wait, I need to be sensitive right now. I need to not market. And one of the things that we really try to share out is you're actually being selfless by continuing to be out there. And the clients and prospects that you're reaching out to, they actually need what you have to offer. And many times they need it now more than ever. So for you to retract that, thinking that they don't need you and thinking that you're promoting something that is a little bit too over the top, or you're pushing your product, they actually need you so badly. So it's about how you lead with that message versus whether you should stop leading with any marketing at all. So I loved that you touched on that. And then I didn't see the final poll results. I'm not sure if it published out. Did you see them, Matt?
No, I sent a note to Dana, so we'll see if there we go.
Oh,
okay.
Coming up.
Here we go. So I'm sure that all of us on the line are not very surprised here. This is definitely a trend, which is the full reason why even all these individuals are on the line and we're doing this event this week, is that the lion's share, so almost 40% of individuals on this call, out of the hundreds that are on this call right now, 39% of you are 0 to 1 hour on marketing a day, right? 1 to 3 hours a day, there's about 38%, so it's almost equal. And then more than 3 hours a day, there's about 24% of you. What are your thoughts on that, Paul, Fiona?
Well, personally, I spend 5 hours a day on marketing my business, and 3 hours doing what my business does and admin and all the other stuff. And that's a habit that's been around for a long time, and my entire day is built around that. So, I'm best in the morning, so I get my marketing of my business done in the morning. And the beauty of that is I can have a great idea. In fact, as you were speaking then, Andrea, I had a great idea, and I sent myself a quick, swift little email. And at 6 o'clock tomorrow, no, I'm not going to tell you now. But at 6 o'clock tomorrow morning, I will take action on that idea, because I've got time to act on marketing. And I think the frustration, if you're only spending an hour a day, and I do understand where that comes from, because everyone's very busy, but the frustration is you get all these good ideas. And the downside of this amazing event that you put on, and congratulations to you both and all the whole team, by the way, because this has just been a stunning success. But the downside of something like this is you walk away with 1,000 ideas, and then you actually get quite frustrated because you can't implement them. And the secret of any marketing is not having the ideas. It's not all the clever things. It's the implementation.
Absolutely.
You take that 4-page letter idea. Someone in the chat said, where is it? Can't remember who it was. Someone said, oh yeah, that's a fantastic idea. I'd love to do it. I'll find it in a second. We've just given that idea to 170 different people. How many people are going to go and execute that tomorrow? It'll probably be 2. That's the reality of it, is because everyone else is going to have other stuff and other things in the way or whatsoever. So I think the more time you can find, this is about working on the business rather than in the business. The more time you can find to work on the business, the faster you'll get to wherever it is that you want to take the business.
Definitely. And I think the analogy that many of us use a lot is working out, right? Everyone knows what you need to do to be healthy and stay fit. It's not rocket science. Everyone knows. And you can partner with people, right? You can get a personal trainer to help you too, keep you a little bit accountable, just like those who are partnering with maybe Fiona or myself or Matt or you, Paul, on helping them execute the things that they know that they need to do to keep their business healthy. It's about actually taking that action. And I agree with you. One of the reasons why we made this bite size every day is just 2 hours. because when you do go to these large conferences and you're getting so much, it's exhausting, right? It really wears you out. And then it defeats the purpose at the end too. You go, whoa, this is just as overwhelming as I thought it was. So I'm just not going to do anything like I was doing right before the event. So these bite-sized pieces and these really actionable items that you both have shared are wonderful. And I think that one of the things you mentioned, Fiona, and I'd love to hear, a little more chat on this, is being LinkedIn, right? So being out on LinkedIn, you mentioned that you utilize it. I'm a huge fan of B2B marketing inside of LinkedIn in specific ways. I know Paul, the reason Paul dislikes it is very valid, because I think a lot of people use it wrong. When you use it correctly and you use it the right way, it is so incredibly powerful and one of the best tools in our tool belt right now for B2B. So you were mentioning you've got to be out there. Right? There's a lot of MSPs dwindling away right now. You've got to be out there in order to be found. And that is why, in order to be in the sales process, people have to be able to find you in these spaces. What do you recommend as far as those just starting out to kind of get out there a little bit, start to market and do more than just the referrals?
Yeah, so I mean, I think the biggest bit of advice I can give, and I've given this to many clients, is literally something is better than nothing. And what you need to remember today is, seriously, people are out doing this land grab exercise, and you do need to really demonstrate the value that you have given to your customers over the last 10 to 12 weeks. If you're not shouting about it, somebody else is going to start shouting about it, and they're going to take your customers. So even if it is just a basic one message a day or one post a day you're putting out there, that is better than nothing. So just do it and get involved. Don't be shy. Don't hold back. I mean, I've got one client, and actually you can look him up if you want to, a guy called Chris Blunt. He runs an MSP in the UK called Broken Stones. They don't have a marketing person. He's not really sure how to do marketing himself. I have told him about you, Paul, by the way.
He's on my list.
But what he does is the problem is he doesn't have time. He runs a really small MSP. He just doesn't have time to do marketing. So we said, what do you do on a daily basis that you could put a little bit of marketing in? The one consistent thing he does every day is he takes his dog for a walk every morning at 6 o'clock. So all he does now is he shoots a short 5-minute video whilst he's taking the dog for a walk, and he posts it up on LinkedIn. And he has got such fantastic engagement just by doing something he's already doing and adding in a 5-minute video. People are very forgiving today when you're doing videos on LinkedIn, because most people had to get used to video very quickly. We had to get used to going online very quickly. So it doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be polished. Just have a good message, have a quick 5-minute video and get that message out there. It's better than you doing nothing. So just start. Once you start, you can then start to perfect it as you move through, and use somebody like Paul when you want to perfect your marketing. Yeah,
and I was going to add, oh, by the way, he's also an ID agent partner, so very cool.
Yeah, exactly.
But and I don't know if anybody caught this, but on Sam's presentation, a dog showed up in the background for just a little bit. But I've been saying this kind of jokingly to people, like, this is the most forgiving time people, as far as getting in front of an audience on video. Kids are showing up, dogs are showing up, and no one cares right now.
Sorry to interrupt you, Matt. What's wonderful about it is it's real. So right. Chris taking his dog for a walk is real. And Chris is actually a great copywriter, Fiona. It's frustrating because I'm on his email list because he writes some of the best emails I've ever seen. I don't know if he's ever going to even hear this. And it was really frustrating when he stopped emailing because I thought he was really getting traction. Anyway, videos, taking the dog for a walk, it's easy and it's real. And if you look on LinkedIn, and Andrea, you said, people using LinkedIn wrong. You're absolutely right. It's full of fluff and nonsense. I put my hands up. We put some awful stuff out on LinkedIn. And I've just made a little note that from tomorrow, I'm going to start doing a daily little video, something real. I'm going to do something of my daughter whinging because the £450 I've just spent on her for a brand new bike, she doesn't like because it's the wrong color or whatever is the tomorrow's morning's problem. And in some way, I'll relate that back to marketing. And I think that's got to be the key to it, hasn't it, being real? If Fiona's absolutely spot on with that one.
Yeah, and 100%. It's funny because Andrew and I were talking earlier, we were kind of laughing. Manny, who spoke yesterday, he was chugging like the biggest thing of water that you could imagine on camera, and we kind of just had a laugh about it. But it's just real. He's just being himself on camera, and people appreciate it. So
absolutely. And I think if nothing else, and then we'll wrap in a second, and I've absolutely loved having you both on for this session. Humans yearn for that. right? We're all the same. Everyone yearns for that human connection. And I think if nothing else, and I did, Paul, you might see it, I did a little video on this months ago when COVID first started, because one of the things that was so beautiful about quarantine, if you can find those silver linings, right, share them out and bring that hope to people, but was the fact that the overproduction of everything was stripped away in an instant. So you didn't have your fancy offices anymore. You didn't have anything. Everyone, no matter what role you were in, no matter who you were, was in their home office reporting live and talking in every single one of their meetings. And it was just very real. You got to meet the children, the dogs, the this, the that, and it's accepted. And you get to gain that rapport quicker almost, right? And now seeing that face to face, you know, you're both in other places right now, but it doesn't feel that way. And so I think that bringing that organic, real feeling into that we've all started to get more familiar with during quarantine, bringing that into your sales strategy, bringing that into your marketing content and the way that you approach this is truly what it's all about. So I look forward to seeing that video, Paul, and we really appreciate you both. So Matt is sharing out the information, and thank you, Fiona, and thank you, Paul, for joining us. And we'll definitely keep in touch. If more questions come your way, we will definitely pitch them over to you too and make sure that they get answered for our MSPs.
Brilliant. Thank you, guys. And thanks for a fantastic event and to all the partners who attended.
Absolutely.
Thank you, guys.
I appreciate
it. Bye.
Bye. Awesome. That was a great session. And I know that we are even going a little past 5, and I appreciate the hundreds of you that I can still see online. So lots to come. Even as we were sitting here, I am getting LinkedIn messages, I'm getting emails, I'm getting Facebook messages about how much you are appreciating this content. And I love hearing that. This is exactly why we teamed to bring this to you. So keep those coming. Matt and I will make sure that we answer everything that you might have questions about, and that we make sure that you know you're really aware of what comes next. So Matt, bring us into the schedule for tomorrow.
Yeah, and you know, I was actually just thinking, you know, the fact that like so many questions still aren't being answered, you know, it's a testament to, you know, we've done this purposely to keep it condensed, but there's so much content to talk about, and maybe there'll be a Pivot to Grow too.
Absolutely. And I've already actually gotten requests about that. So there is, and we're only 2 days into this, guys, and we are so just delighted to be putting in this effort to get you the things that we know you need. So tomorrow, you can see here Wednesday. So Wednesday, Tiffany Bova, some of you may have had the pleasure of hearing her speak. She has some amazing books and resources out, and she has done a ton of work in the technology space for years. She will be on sharing really just some awesome and powerful content around growth. So do not miss her. She will be on at 3 o'clock tomorrow. And then we have a marketing track and a sales track really too, that's going to be led by Tim. A lot of you know Tim Conkle. He's with the 20. And then also Mark Elliott will be joining him. They are going to be talking about how to add dollars to your bottom line and quick and easy actionable things you can do to do that. And then sharing some real life stories with you. So it's going to be an awesome session. Those of you who know either of them know that it's going to be powerful, and I'm certain that you're going to get a lot out of it. And since we are going over, we won't go through all the days, but make sure that you check in, stay with us. We've got a lot of great things coming on Thursday. We'll talk about that even tomorrow to tee up. And then Friday, we've got a really great panel that's going to be on, as well as the LinkedIn ladies, talking through just a lot of great tips and tricks for you, how to better use LinkedIn. And then we have a happy hour, and we are going to be having a family-friendly, as Matt always says, family-friendly happy hour, and you can bring your kids, and this can be something that you join in, and there's going to be a great band coming to play, the Quarantine Kids that they're called, and you'll definitely enjoy it.
Absolutely, and we will do our best to send the questions that were asked to the panelists, whoever was on at that time, so that they're able to provide that answer for. But you guys can of course connect directly with them. We provided all the links in the chat. And again, just a reminder, I know there's been a million questions. Everybody will receive recordings of all the sessions throughout the week, you know, at the end of the week or the following week, I believe. So the following week, the recordings will be available though.
They will, but I urge you, tune in. So the recordings will come out, but tune into the lives and engage. And so we've got some neat things coming too. We're going to have giveaways at the end as well. So tune in. Thank you all for joining us, and we will see you tomorrow.
Thanks, guys.